What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Tom Bilyeu Show. I am joined by the crew. What's up, crew? How are we feeling today? You nice? We've got new people off camera who I'm sure you'll be introduced to in due time. But let's begin. One, by welcoming you guys. Thank you guys for being here. It is wonderful, as always, to see you guys. Thank you for joining us for these lives. We ran some numbers, and we actually are growing, which is exciting. And hopefully we can continue to accelerate that growth. Let's do it. All right. In that vein, let's talk about Ray Dalio, who is warning about something worse than a recession. And I think people are misconstruing what he's saying in the clip, to be honest. But I think it's worth playing. This is just the short clip. We'll start here. We may have to go to the longer version of this, which I dropped in D, but we'll start with the snippet here.
Right now, we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money, so we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar,
for a second.
And we talk about...
this is the thing everybody thinks the only thing Ray is warning against is the reckless way in which Trump does everything, as far as I can tell. I don't think that's Ray's big takeaway. Knowing Ray, reading essentially everything that he writes, his punchline is these moments repeat in history. This was predictable long before Trump got reelected. He's been screaming about these are 1930 vibes. That lightens it. We have the same circumstances that were present in 1930. Summed up most easily by saying there's a rise in populism. People feel disenfranchised. Things are not going well for the masses. The masses are then going to start banging the drum of we want change. Trump becomes a figure of that moment, slots into place, and starts doing the thing that populist leaders do, which is, hey, I'm going to give you your world back, and I'm going to break a lot of things on the way to doing it. The thing that he quickly glosses over here that normally he's very careful to like drill into is you can't keep doing what you're doing. And once you understand that the core of Ray's thesis isn't populism, the core of Ray's thesis is debt. Debt gives rise to populism through mechanisms that we have talked about endlessly on the show, including the printing of money. And he says that no empire ever has been able to resist the temptation of unfettered deficit spending because they can print money to cover the problem. It's really crazy. It's really crazy. And that the thing that he's worried about, if I had to put words to it, he doesn't like to say the words because he knows how it just becomes a clip and people meme it and it goes everywhere, is a breakdown of the international order that leads to war. And so the thing worse than a recession, he's not just like avoiding saying the word depression. It's far bigger than that.
Because I think it's a culmination of all the things that lead to the collapse, like the collapse of the society, which to me is bigger than a recession. But
it's also a lot bigger than a recession. Yeah, recessions are whatever, temporary. You get to the other side.
Like we had a bad one in 2008, so everybody thinks recession is a bad thing. But some argue we were in a recession recently. But what do you think is the actual takeaway? Like, are people going to be out on the streets? Like, because even the Great Depression sounds like a super recession, but like, what does that actually mean practically? Like,
the Great Depression was a super recession. Another way to think about 2008 was a depression where we just had better tools for getting ourselves out of it quickly. But the reality is that, I mean, it was economically catastrophic. And this is one of the things where my ideology has to confront reality, which is I think it is immoral to print money because of what it does to people in terms of they can't save their money, but would it be even worse, given that you're in that system, would it be even worse to not print money in a time of that kind of devastation? And the answer is probably yes, but it's like, how do you get out of this? And this is exactly why these things almost always, not always, but almost always terminate in warfare, because there's no elegant way to back out of it that conforms to the realities of the human psyche. And one of the things I hope we talk about today is you are having a biological experience. I have it in the doc. And that's what you're fighting against. People, they don't change until they are absolutely forced to. And so I don't know, man. I don't know if we're going to be able to avoid this, or if it is literally just, where are we? What is the rate at which we are marching towards that catastrophe? And is there a way to change the direction? It just seems like, in fact, there's only one question. What rate are you marching towards it? There's nothing else. As far as I can tell.
It's a matter of time at that point.
Yes, we don't always end up there, though. And I need to hold out hope for that, for my own sanity. And then plus, all of this does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you talk about it, the harder the tractor beam pulls. But if you don't talk about it at all, the tractor beam still pulls. So your only hope is, oh God, this is why people start spinning, man. This is why people start lying to you, because they believe that they can get you off the path, and it fucking deranges, which takes us into the whole Douglas Murray, Dave Smith, thank you, debate, debacle, depending on how you want to look at it. All right, let's stay focused. Ray Dalio, back to it.
About tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing, and we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems, are very, very disruptive. How that's handled could produce something that is much worse than a recession.
And by the way, we are going to be having Ian Bremmer live joining us in about 45 minutes. So you guys are going to need to pre-submit any questions that you want us to ask him, just by way of a heads up. All right, Drew, I think you were about to say something.
I was. We talked about it. Do you think, to me, it's interesting because we put tariffs out thinking that was going to be the thing that would stop and detail and maybe probably slow tail this inevitable fall to collapse. But it seems like that's only exacerbating the problem with China biting back, and now they're going direct to consumer. We have some of these other videos to play. Do you think that there is something that we can do? I know it's not a magical flip or a button, but if we stop printing money, if we decided to just cut deals with everybody in tariffs, if we just kind of went back to 3 or 4 years before the pandemic, does that undo any of this? Like, what's the optimistic side?
Are you saying, hey, Tom, time travel is on the table. Keep us from... Man, there's nothing in history that tells me that this is going to be an easy problem to solve. So, however, given that we have printed just the most ungodly amount of money, you could certainly slow the rate at which you're marching towards this by being fiscally responsible during COVID. So when we did the initial stimulus, that made sense. I think most economists, when they look at Biden's then furtherance of the printing, it was like, we probably shouldn't have done that. So not doing that would help a little. And so that slows your rate of progression here. But the real time travel I'd want to do is probably back to the 90s. If I knew then what we know now about the escalation of Thucydides' trap that China was going to become truly economically powerful, that they weren't going to break democratic, that they were going to find a new form of red light, green light with capitalism of, okay, yes, now, not in the future. So the thing that we were using maybe as an excuse was, hey, this will be better for people. Like, let's export capitalism. Let's get them involved. It will help us in terms of everybody doing the thing that they specialize in. We can get cheap labor. In fact, I don't even know if they were thinking about specialization. We can get cheap labor.
Mm-hmm.
They can pull themselves out of poverty. Globalization is going to be a big win for everybody. And if we had realized what it was going to do to our manufacturing base, if we had realized that they would become so powerful that we would then be in this tractor beam of potential military conflict, I hate to say it, but you keep them less powerful so that you don't end up having that pure competitor. Because what's going on right now is the breakdown of the world order is twofold. One, we spent like drunken sailors. So that's another part of this that we would have to start backtracking on, is we cannot get into the deficits that we're in now. You just have to pump the brakes way earlier. Because if we weren't in the debts that we're in now, we'd be in a much stronger position. And then if you can keep yourself in a position where you have all the allies, you hold more of the cards. Now I hate saying that phrase. You would be in a much more stable position. But now you start getting into, okay, how do you not spend all that money? You can't be doing all the wars that you're doing, all the things that led us to spend that kind of money. This is one where I could journal out loud because I can feel the connections being made of the choices that we made. But this is not something that I've thought through a lot. Trying to honor the request that I not keep journaling out loud. I'll stop there. But there are a lot of connections, I think, to be made about just countless mistakes that they're never inevitable, but it's just so likely that the human animal will make them.
It just kind of seems like you're out when you go out on like a Saturday night and you just take that last shot that you shouldn't have. And now it's just like, I know I'm going to have a hangover. I know I'm going to be messed up. I just have to kind of deal with it type thing. Like, I feel like we're past that point of no return.
It's
it sounds like
more that it, in fact, okay, by giving me the layer of abstraction, I can speak about this a little more cleanly without having to journal. It isn't the fact that you had the final shot. That's what we're dealing with now. Now we're going up. We had one too many, and now we have to deal with it. What I'm saying is you have to go back to the point and accept you're trying to get laid. You understand that by going to the club and as a man flexing like you've got access to resources, also being young and handsome isn't certainly going to hurt your prospects. But trying to paint the picture that you are all the things that an attractive woman would want by signaling at the club, that's the underlying problem. And then you exacerbate that by, it strikes me that some grotesque number of animals have a desire to manipulate their brain chemistry. It's entirely possible that that's just literally top to bottom, that every creature given the opportunity to alter their brain chemistry will do so. So you put those two things together, that I'm going to put you in a situation where you're going to pursue females by flexing and altering your brain chemistry, which lowers your inhibitions, which makes it even more likely that you have a good time and that you end up in the position, having children, that you want to be in from an evolutionary standpoint. It just turns into this cocktail of, was it avoidable? Like, is it avoidable to stop 20-year-olds from being stupid and paying the price when they're 50 with bad joints and, you know, all kinds of horrific knock-on effects, heart disease, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, red light, and this is a big one.
Yeah, I saw that.
This
I was like,
is
literally
a
had to
big
double take. I was like,
one.
is that
We have
Turkish some things?
this is it doesn't say it's Turkish.
No, as
So,
far as I can tell, this
yeah,
is USD.
I feel
Bitcoin
like-
Ben Show.
Hold
Let's
on,
go.
I feel like Bitcoin Ben Show just set another record.
He almost
100%.
certainly.
That's
We've never
100%.
been
Let's
here
applause
before.
in the chat.
Let's go.
Bitcoin Ben, new
Bitcoin
record
Ben.
on the record on the
We could do this.
Super
We
Chat.
could do this.
Well done,
Yeah,
the
Super
Bitcoin
Chat.
Ben Show. Good
Hit
to see
him
you
hit
again.
him with another. Hit him with another.
It-
Yeah. Super chat.
One more time.
There it
One
is.
more
There it
time.
is.
One more
There we
time,
go.
one more
Yeah. Super
Drew's
chat.
mic only laughs. I don't know what that means.
All right. Bitcoin Ben Show. They said, what's your thoughts on Tucker Carlson interview with the 9/11 congressman who proved the CIA that let 9/11 happen on purpose to justify invading Afghanistan?
Man, now I feel bad. I'm going to let you down because I haven't seen it. So I have no idea. Bitcoin Ben, I owe you an answer to that. Coming in that hot with that super chat, but I don't know. So who proved the CIA let
That's
9/11
what jumped out to
happen?
me. Yeah, the proof
That
is what's
feels
that's
like
interesting.
I'm going to watch that and be super sus. I have a feeling that history goes something more like this. We know we want to invade, insert the country, because we want, insert the thing, and we are eternally on lookout for the thing that gives us that opportunity. So I say this to my wife all the time. The difference between my wife and I is that when my wife has something to say, if she has beef with somebody, she's got to address it right fucking now. Like, I'm going to tell you about it right now in this moment. It doesn't matter what's going on in that person's life. It doesn't matter if there's good vibes, bad vibes in the air. She has to deal with it right now. And I'm like, that's a dumb strategy. And what you need to be doing, and I hope she's in the feed, although I'm almost certain she's still sleeping. What you should be doing is saying, I'm going to wait for the right opportunity when the person's guard is down, when there's like an increased level of connection, so that I can say, hey, that thing, that really bothered me. And I want to get us over to this new place. And because of that, there's a part of my brain that's running an algorithm that's constantly going, is this the right time? Is this the right time? Is this the right time? And so when something presents itself, boom, I'm ready and I move. So the odds that they're so complex to do these things. It's more about a whole bunch of different people pulling in different directions. So for instance, this is really going to be, this is hypothetical. Please understand, I'm thinking like a fiction writer right now. But you have people that, let's say that they, whether they want to destabilize you'll get people who want to destabilize our own government. And so they're like, ooh, I like the idea of a weak southern border. Then you're going to have people that really are coming from a place of compassion. And my family were immigrants. And so I want to make sure that immigrants are able to come here, read the words on the Statue of Liberty, which nobody's more inspired by than me, by the way. And the guy who wants to destabilize America is like, yeah, word, that's good for me. And the person who's being compassionate is like, yeah, this is amazing for me. And so now that gets momentum inside of, in this case, the Democratic Party. And for a whole host of reasons, it ends up being the thing that happens. Now, to say that that was just the CIA weakening that so that they could destroy America, no, it's somebody who goes, ooh, that's good for me and what I'm trying to do. They don't have a clear idea how this is going to play out. It's way too complicated. But hey, it's not bad for me. And so I'm not going to stop it. Now, did they expect however many number of terrorists to come across the border, learn how to fly planes and smash? Probably not. I just don't think it's ever that clear. I don't think there's ever like a grand puppet master, but I think there are always people with competing agendas who push for things to happen, want for things to happen, and or take advantage of something when it happens. So given the fact, Wesley Clark, I think it was, that said, hey, for reasons I don't even understand, we have these 5-7 countries, whatever it is, that we want to go in, we want to take over. And then one by one, we're looking for opportunities to move on them, right? And sometimes it'll be lies, so weapons of mass destruction. I have not investigated it closely enough to have 100% certainty on the following thing, but this is just in my mind as it was a lie and we were manipulated, the weapons of mass destruction. Maybe I'm wrong. And if I look more closely, maybe I'll be like, oh no, there was a perfectly legitimate reason to believe that. But in my mind, it has been written that that was just bullshit, total lie to get us to go in for reasons of oil and economic might. So
it's not necessarily that the CIA set it up, but it was just like, hey, shared incentives, we'll look the other way. Let's see what happens. More likely.
As long as people understand that we'll look the other way is not me saying that's what happened. It's just going to be a thing like that. One, probably a pocket in the CIA, not the CIA as a whole. And it's a bunch of people making vague statements about, you've got a senator saying to somebody that has a CIA group, and they're like, be a real shame if the southern border gotten weakened.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, I like the sound of that. But nobody's ever spelling anything out. You know what I mean? So that's just true about what I know about humans. It's also true about what I know about companies. As you scale a company, you start finding that there are factions with competing agendas inside one company. It is so weird. And so you're like, oh, yeah. Like, we have all these stated goals, all this clarity, financial alignment of our incentives, and yet people still pull in different directions, partly because they look at the future and they see something different. Different base assumptions. So you're not sharing a foundation upon which all of your beliefs are built. All right, that's probably enough. So period. It's competing agendas, pulling in different directions, and people take advantage of the opportunities when they present themselves, and then people confuse that was the mission all along.
There's like 17 9/11 conspiracy theories, so I'm not going to have you pin down exactly it, but do you think there is something other than what the news reported is like behind it? Do you think one of these 17 alternative reality theories might have something? Like, is there every...
It's the same way I feel about God.
Uh-huh.
There are people that can give you an explanation that if you'll grant them a miracle or two, that has internal logic. And it's like, okay, cool. I can track your beliefs. I understand. But if I don't agree with your miracles, then it all falls apart. So it is deeply, let me finish that part. So everybody has an explanation. I may disagree with the explanation, but I agree there's something going on that I don't understand. And so I'm only saying the specific wrapper you're giving it, I don't like. So how about this? A lot of hella fishy stuff going on. I just disagree. I don't know enough to agree is a better way of saying it on any one conspiracy. I think you've got to like really fucking go down those rabbit holes. That's not the level of analysis that I ever plan to do. So I am cause and effect man. So I want to track cause and effect. And once I get to the level of what humans do at scale, that's the cause and effect that I'm looking for. So when I look at something like 9/11, I go, yes, governments will pull against themselves. Yes, people will lie, cheat, and steal. Yes, people will do anything to gain power and maintain power. Yes, there are people who are sociopaths. And so as long as they're winning, they literally don't give a fuck about anybody else, even at the level of country. As far as I can tell, those are distributed around the world, not evenly because culture is going to exacerbate those things, but that means there are going to be some here. And so all of those things fall within what I'll call the physics of the human mind. So that's where I start tracking things. It's just, would it be consistent with what I know about human nature that there was some anti-American involvement from American governments, et cetera, in the mix? Yes. Was this probably a straight line grand conspiracy? No. Is it more likely that there was a lot of opportunism? Yes. So when you look at something like, hey, we lost $2 trillion and then the next day planes slam into the trade towers and Tower 7, I think it is, that collapses and nothing hit and it happened to house all those documents. Like, is that super fucking sus? Yes. But also the Department of Defense has continued to be unable to pass an audit, has continued to misplace trillions of dollars, and we have not had to bury the lead. It's just, we've all grown to accept it. So do I think that they would orchestrate something like that for that reason? I don't know. Probably not. But the real answer is, I don't know.
Yeah. Pedro Garcia, crypto chart analyst on X, said, Tom, it's a congressman, and he has nine other congressmen who agree with him. You need to look at it.
I'll happily look at it. Can we get a link? Can somebody drop that to me in Slack? I'll take a look. But my punchline is, I'm going to walk away from that saying, did this update my view of how the world works? Yes or no? And the only utility in getting really involved in the specifics of something like that would be if I think that it's a fulcrum, like understanding this and pulling this out. This is for me, not that I don't hope somebody else does it, but why would I do it? That I believe that this is a fulcrum upon which something right now is going to hinge. Then I could see really going in. Otherwise, I would say, guys, just run a thought experiment. Do you think it's possible that the people in charge are lying to you? Not only do I think it's possible, I think it is guaranteed that some percentage of the words coming out of their mouth are absolute lies. So now I'm like, okay, how much time did I spend on that? Did that update my worldview in any way that's meaningful? Remember, the right way to map me is as somebody who's obsessed with cause and effect, as I can deploy it in my own life. And so if I don't see an end where I'm like, this isn't going to update my worldview, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. So part of the reason I got into economics is it matters so much in your day-to-day life. So for instance, I'll just give you the most boring analysis of why understanding this moment in economic history is going to matter. If we go into like real trauma territory for the stock market.
What do you mean trauma territory?
If you have a prolonged dip of, say, north of 10 or 15%.
Gotcha.
And if it goes in 20, 30, 50%, like Great Depression type shit, that's how you get rich coming back out the other side. And so it will matter. It will matter. One, are you positioning yourself right now to have dry powder? Two, will you have the testicle fortitude, to quote my boy Gad Sad, to actually buy in that period?
Yeah.
And if you have that dry powder and you have the guts to do it, that's how you make 20%, 50% on your money in 3 or 4 years. So it matters to understand this stuff. But I won't lie. If you want to get me involved in a conspiracy, here is the one that like my feed now is showing me nonstop.
You know, full algorithm, full rabbit hole in it.
It's was there an ancient civilization that collapsed? And that the flood mythology is all about an ancient civilization that gets wiped out in the Younger Dryas period. That has begun to really capture my imagination. And so that's something that I would go down the road on, even though I don't know. I cannot imagine that will have any direct impact on the way that I live my life today, but I find it utterly fascinating. So, yeah.
We just got a reel shared to us about the interview. I want to check it out. See.
Let's go.
We could just watch this.
This is the 9/11 thing.
Yeah.
Let's check it out.
About to watch 5 days ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. It's with a former congressman from Pennsylvania called Curt Weldon. Curt Weldon was a very significant figure in Washington 20 years ago. He was not some obscure backbencher. He was one of the most powerful Republicans in the Congress, about to take over the Armed Services Committee, until he asked questions about the official story on 9/11, at which point the Bush administration sent the FBI to his daughter's house, destroyed her life, never charged her with a crime, and effectively got Curt Weldon bounced out of Congress. I haven't talked to him in 20 years. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but this conversation, the one you're about to see, raises far more questions than I ever anticipated. This is not a crazy person. These are not crazy questions. He makes no claims he doesn't have personal firsthand evidence of. When it ended, I asked him how many other officials who were in and around Washington during 9/11 have similar questions. And he said to me, as far as I know, all of them. And he's still in touch with a lot of those people. After this conversation, which again we've been thinking about ever since, I thought it might be time to look a little more deeply into the 9/11 Commission report. Was it accurate? 9/11 changed the United States forever. Those of us who remember it, who lived through it, can tell you this was a different country afterward, completely different, and not a better country. And so there is no more significant historical event in the lifetimes of any living American than 9/11. And the fact that there are still outstanding questions about what exactly happened and why is troubling. Up until this point, most of the people who've addressed these questions are either crazy or seem slightly crazy. Now is the time for a sober look, not a wild-eyed, speculative look, but an honest look and honest conversations with people who participated in the response to that day, government officials. And so we're going to do that. We are planning right now a multi-part documentary series on 9/11. And we hope to bring that to you as soon as we possibly can.
All right.
Well, I can't wait to see that. Okay, so we didn't get to see any of the man himself.
I sent the link for the actual interview. I'm asking if there's a specific time code for it as well.
Yeah, that would help. Or if somebody's done like a super duper cut down, that would help.
And we have a red light.
Let's go red
Red
light.
light.
We have Michael van der Gallion with the turkey, 1,100.
Our favorite Dutch Turkish abiding citizen.
Michael
Welcome back,
says he was not just a congressman, he was the ranking congressman for the House Armed Services Committee and set to become chairman when he decided not to hold his mouth about it.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, that certainly doesn't violate anything that I know to be true about politics, human nature. This is one of the central debates of our time. Do we want the narrative to be controlled? Full stop. This is why I love Douglas Murray. I love Sam Harris. They will continue to be in my algorithmic repertoire. But when people ice somebody out and say only authorities should be allowed to speak, that's where I'm like, yeah, no, that's exactly how narratives become controlled. So I get the impulse. I get where it's like, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Fair enough. But what they keep from happening is they keep the narrative from solidifying. And as the narrative solidifies, and I understand, God, this is going to be one of those things that people want to clip out. As the narrative solidifies, you are blinded to the complex reality of what happened. Now, we all need heuristics. We need things to be simplified enough to talk about them. I fully understand. However, you really have to want people to say, let me give you an alternate take. And I think this comes down to, we all know, I think this is a dumb voter problem, but it comes down to, where's the onus for interpreting the world? Is it on elites or is it on you? And I would say it's on you, motherfucker. And I get it. You might be too dumb to do this well. Tough fucking break. Take it up with God. You have the hand of cards that you have. And now, yes, I am expecting you to parse a very complicated world. Because otherwise, you get all these narratives, people get drug into wars and all kinds of stupid shit, and they give you a really good argument for why it should be just like that, why you would be a fool to do anything else. And all I'm saying is, you should want people to speak the fuck up. And anybody that's saying anything even remotely interesting in the era where we have X and people can just talk, that's going to find its way to the surface. And then if you would like your elites to come in and go, I would like to do battle with these ideas, I love that. I love that. I have privately talked to some of these elites and said, hey, this thing has hit a critical threshold. Please engage with this, because somebody needs to say what's going on here. And there is often this sense of like, I'm not going to touch that. That's beneath me. And I'm like, okay, motherfucker. Then you're going to leave it for everybody else to argue. Your only other option, which unfortunately, many, not all, many elites are perfectly happy with. And when you hear arguments like, and I really mean this, like my beloved Douglas Murray made against Dave Smith, it's just the wrong argument. So I don't know if he was fatigued, if he just didn't want to talk about it. That I don't know. But it's like, really do go one by one on the arguments and just like bat them down. This is what you're misunderstanding there. Nope, this is what you're misunderstanding there. And then, I mean, I tried to do my treatise, which, by the way, I think it was Richard, who I was going through some of the posts in, I think, Dave Smith talking about it. And one of our beloved community members was like, here, this will explain it. And they posted our video. God bless you for doing so. And it had 0 views. So I was like, well, then. Didn't quite work in that feed, but get to base assumptions, figure out what people are really trying to say, attack their base assumptions, But people don't ever do it, man. They don't ever do it either because they don't realize the concept of base assumptions exists. They don't understand that people speak words based on a knowable foundation, or they don't care and it's a blood sport and they're just trying to win the argument.
Speaking of blood sports, I want to talk about this China tariff update because I think China is playing unfair. I have been seeing these TikToks all over my feed this weekend, and I feel like my conspiracy tin hat theory is that we got lockdowns and then we got TikTok to get brainwashed while we were indoors. I feel like a similar thing is happening right now where America is so upset about tariffs and their favorite goods being more expensive that now we're seeing a rash of TikToks from like Chinese factories and Chinese citizens advocating Americans to look at their last couple of years differently. So this is one of the videos that popped out to me.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs only ship your job to China. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodged tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave probably made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
And this is on the back of Gary Economics, and I feel like he hit a very sentiment. There are people in the chat who are like, I don't know. So
I don't know what.
Like he's not lying.
He's not wrong. Yeah. Okay. He's got a point. He's not wrong. We did let this happen. Time to wake up.
I like this guy.
But oh man. So here's the thing. I need to know what the carry on is after that. So people will often use the word it. And I would like them to take the time to define it. What is it? What are we saying that or they'll use a word like revolution. Okay, what is the revolution? What is the stated aim of the revolution? Once I have that, then I know whether I agree with you or not. Until that point, this is team sports. This is propaganda, which we all play. I get it. I'm fucking Team America, hardcore. So no beef, totally understand. But the reality is we obviously did let this happen. That is for sure from a structural perspective. The question becomes, when you say take your country back, what is he referring to? Is he saying you need better oligarchs? You need people that are spending money better? What aspect? Like if he's painting the picture, China did this right and you guys did this wrong, then I'm going to need, again, to get a breakdown of what is this?
Reallocating the wealth that they gained from the trade imbalance that happened over the last 40 years.
Okay, so here is the fundamental question about China. China has put a new piece on the board, and that new piece on the board is red light, green light capitalism. Yes, capitalism today, no capitalism tomorrow. Yes, I get that you want to work somewhere else, but you don't get to work somewhere else. You are going to work here. And this is why, and look, some of this stuff could be manipulations by our own government, propaganda. But for a while, I heard that Foxconn has nets outside the facility to keep people from jumping to their death because they feel like they've been enslaved. You've got people putting messages in fortune cookies. Again, I don't know if this is real or if this is propaganda, but it certainly all fits my belief system around what it would mean to live in a totalitarian regime where they're controlling you from the top down. Now, personally, because of my frame of reference, I would not want that. So this idea that you can build a government that knows what's best for you, that they're going to do the right thing. This is the same government that, let's remember, in the 1960s was starving their people to death, 10 million at a time. So you'll forgive me if I don't look at one beat in their life cycle and go, this is a better way to do it. So the question becomes, if we were going to do a revolution here in the US, what would we want the revolution to look like? So for sure, you need a thriving middle class. There is no doubt about that. The question becomes, how do you get a thriving middle class? We want to avoid a kinetic war with China. So the question is, how do you avoid a kinetic war with China? We absolutely must have manufacturing base back here. So if he's saying that answering all those questions are the revolution that we need, yes, I agree. If he's saying something else, then again, I would need the specifics before I can tell you if I'm on board with that.
And I will give you some specifics because we have a red light from the Bitcoin Ben Show.
Bitcoin Ben Show back.
$200 super chat.
Let's go. We knew I had to air horn that one. We had to air horn that one. RIP to the headphone users.
Bitcoin Ben Show
Fix the world,
says
David.
He's got a solution for you. And he says the revolution is Bitcoin. It destroys the global fiat banking system slowly, then suddenly. Thank you, Bitcoin Ben Show, for your super chat.
You're the man, Bitcoin Ben Show.
Bitcoin Ben, you are both not wrong, and I don't know you, so you may not fit into a growing group of people that make me want to chew an ocean of glass. I saw one of them today, came across my feed, and he was actually laughing, saying, if this isn't a direct quote, it is so directionally accurate, you will get the idea. Thank God they're going to print more money. This fiat system is a joke. Just print fast and get it over with. And I was like, oh my God, that is so horrible. So the idea of Bitcoin as a life raft, yes. And Lord knows that I have bought my fair share of that raft. And I hold my share of that raft. And I love it. Duchy Jones introducing a new idea.
Eat the Rich Kids. I was laughing at that
It's
too.
a good combo.
That was good.
So we really should at least be aiming for a way to unwind all of this that is good for people that understand the basics of life. And if you don't need to leave those people behind, please don't. And nobody laments harder than me that you do run up against the realities of life and that it may be impossible to unwind a system this complex without just letting it burn itself out. Certainly history says that's how it typically plays out. But to say, well, you dummies, Bitcoin existed, you didn't buy any, and so when you drown in the flood, them's is the breaks. I just really don't like that. I really don't like that because there are two things that people intuitively understand, not no matter how much they got dealt a terrible hand intellectually, but there's a lot of resilience in the human spectrum of intelligence for two very simple ideas. You have made money, bury it under your front porch, and 20 years from now, dig it up and spend that money. People get that. The other thing they get is buy a house. They get that. And so what have we done? We have made it nearly impossible for millennials to buy a house. And I don't even think Gen Z thinks about it anymore. And we've inflated the money supply so dramatically that if you buried money under your porch 20 years ago, I'm sorry, because damn, like that's going to be worth, are we at like 70% of what it was when you buried it.
And that's
maybe
not the
less.
amount that you
Oh,
lose
God,
because
it's
of
less than
molding and stuff, because dollars themselves will break down over time.
Yeah, it's just
You know that? Like,
the way that
it's so
inflation
sad.
works.
If you bury a bag of money in like 20 years, half of it's gone.
And if you put it in a storage unit,
Yeah.
the little silverfish or whatever, they come in and eat it as well. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
That's crazy.
But
So it's impossible literally to save money.
it's
Like, even-
impossible
even
literally
if
to
I had-
save
if I
money
saved
because
physical dollars, it would get eaten away. Like,
yes, but you could save
it's
gold.
crazy.
But so that is I don't know what I want from people other than I really wish upon seeing that people saw a reflection of people they love and thought, why are we in this situation to begin with? So I don't know. I may be screaming into the void. It's entirely possible, but I have a very strong negative emotional reaction when people treat Bitcoin like simply knowing that it exists is fine and fuck everybody that doesn't get it.
Heard on that. Thank you, the Bitcoin Ben Show. Very generous, great super chat. I want to take it back to the TikTok though. You said we were going to have two different reactions from that. To me, he tapped into the emotional pain that a lot of Americans are feeling, who are caught up in the whirlwinds of hokey dokey tariffs, even if it's just, I wanted to buy a Switch and now I have to wait an extra 2 weeks. I can't buy a Switch, all the way to my gas price, my egg prices are $1,500. Whatever they fall on that spectrum, they're actively impacted. And I feel like this TikTok is directly talking to those types of people. From your perspective, how would you, I just don't want him to radicalize people. Like I got radicalized off of the tax revenue thing.
How many days again?
13,687.
When you say you don't want him to radicalize people,
I feel like a lot of people are going to hear that TikTok and be like, exactly, like I'm tired of this. We do need to stand up. We do. And it creates the internal disorder that is part of Ray Dalio's 5 factors that cause it.
are you able to articulate what you're worried? How does it create the disorder?
That there's going to be more dissent within the system that's going to lead to protests, violence, escalating political pressure that's going to lead to bad policies that won't lead to.
So shut up and just accept the bad things that are happening to you. That's what you want people to do.
No, I just want people to adopt ideas that's going to be net positive and not just act in an emotional.
Okay, so then you and I are exactly on the same page. I thought we saw this differently because the way you headlined it was your country lied to you. Whereas I feel like that's propaganda. And the reason that I think it's propaganda is he's not telling you the specifics of his ideas. He's just like, you need revolution, which is the same as saying you need instability. And so that obviously I hate and read as blatant propaganda. So here is what I want to see, because it is entirely possible that it's not entirely possible. Given the level of debt that we're in, we absolutely need a fundamental change. The economic world order cannot survive America being in this kind of debt. It can't. So if I can get people to agree to that, then it's like, okay, well, guys, given the amount of debt that you have, you've got to do something fundamentally different. So now we can argue about whether the thing that we're doing is the right fundamentally different thing. I think we have a Destiny clip. I haven't seen it yet, but Destiny, again, I assume he's saying Tom is so dumb it hurts. And so I'll be very interested to see if he gives a reason for that. But where I want to end up is, what are our aims? What are we trying to achieve? Then let's debate the things of what do we think is actually going to get us there. But you have to start by establishing a common understanding. Even if it's like, I'm not going to adopt your understanding, I at least now understand it. So from a position of, oh, I understand the way that you think, a very magical thing happens. As long as we're both trying to get to the same place, and I think a lot of people in America are trying to get to the same place. If we're trying to get to the same place and we're just arguing about the way that we can get there, now there's very fruitful dialogue to be had. But let's say that we're both saying similar things. So I'm saying, hey, let's make sure that we return a thriving middle class. And AOC is saying, hey, let's make sure that we return a thriving middle class. I'm like, oh, word, damn, like we're on the same page. And then the more that I run thought experiments with her, I ask her questions, I realize, oh, wait a second. So if I bring back a thriving middle class, but billionaires become more wealthy, you would be bothered by that. I have a feeling she would say yes. I think, there's higher predictive validity of understanding her or Bernie if you understand they need to see billionaires suffer. And if they don't see them suffer, they're never going to be happy. So they want...
As in AOC and Bernie will never be happy unless all their policies are happening in addition to the billionaires also suffering, you're saying? They will only put forward policies that take from billionaires. That's like their whole punchline. Copy.
And that's why if they were saying, hey, what we really need to do is we need to find a way for people in the middle class to make more money. We want to see wages go up. And we think the best way to do that is with a higher tax rate on the wealthy. And let me walk you through historical examples of why we think this makes sense. Let us show you our proposals so that you can see the very tactical ways that we think that this is going to drive wages. Then it's like, oh man, because if that's going to work, then I've got no beef. Where I have beef is, are you doing that because you see a clear path to that working, or are you doing that because you want to quote unquote soak the rich? And if you're doing it because you want to soak the rich, then that becomes something very different. That is envy. That is a dark contractive energy. That's not something that goes anywhere positive. So like with the whole, I see a lot of people, take Mark Cuban, for reasons that I can't quite figure out as I try to map him, because he strikes me as somebody who he understands propaganda. So I'm certainly not saying that he never does that. Certainly felt like that close to the election. But I think he's pretty sincere, and I definitely think he's very smart. So he, I think, is really trying to help people to understand a path forward. But when talking about tariffs, he's like, if you're one of the people that says that we need these tariffs as a way to bring manufacturing back to the US, you damn well better not be buying anything literally exclusively in all capital letters. You better be buying things exclusively from American companies. And I'm like, huh? How does that make sense? So my thing there is, has he now spilled over into either propaganda or bitterness, dislike of the Republican Party, or something like that I can't track?
Why do you think it's confusing that if you are in support of tariffs, you should only buy American? That seems on brand for me.
Okay, so think about, do you want to bring every bit of manufacturing back to the U.S.?
Every bit makes me seem like the proper answer is no. So,
well, there's no seems like the proper answer. There's only cause and effect. Yeah. So if you look at this and you go, there is a reason why I am banging the drum to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. It is twofold. One, and this is the weakest of my arguments, that it will offer jobs for people who they want to work with their hands. The way that they're going to express themselves in the world is not through white-collar intellectual pursuits.
Copy.
Cool. So there's that. Now that argument is weak because of what's going to happen with AI. And we have like super low unemployment right now. So I'll accept that one's weak, but it's still nonetheless, that is the thing for me. The next one, which is the big one, which is like 85% of why I think about this, you cannot let your largest military rival control your fucking supply chain. Like absurd in the extreme. So why would I need to buy everything from America? So if you said everything that you would otherwise get from China, you better be buying in America. Okay. That would make sense. But the whole exclusively argument means he's having a team fucking debate. He is saying, if you believe this, fuck you. You're a dummy. You're on that team. I'm on this team. So you better fucking exclusively do that. A guy that can handle the nuance is suddenly saying, no fucking nuance, beat you with club. You wrong team, me right team. You take brain damage. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what is the sequence of cause and effect? People don't think at the level of cause and effect, and it drives me.
Red light.
We have a red light.
Stay tuned, guys. Ian Bremmer should be joining shortly. It's going to be a great conversation. Red light. Sorry, Eunice.
In fact, on the back of the red light, we're going to need to know. If you've got questions for Ian Bremmer, you need to be pulling them out, getting them to this young man.
I already sent
we already got
the link to him.
Discord is going.
Now, I don't see it in this document. Is that because we are not together on this document yet?
I have not been shared on that document yet.
Let's go.
I just wanted to put the red light on for a quick time check since it is 6:58, 6:59 now, but also to shout out what some of the things that the people in the chat were saying really quick.
Let's go.
We've got, oh no, it's scrolling by itself now. How dare you? We have got Elkie saying, Tom, you have a responsibility as a content creator. Stop saying you don't know what progressives want. You know what progressives want. You obviously don't.
What?
You were saying that all of Bernie's policies and AOC's policies would not, like, you think it would only hit if it then takes from billionaires, and that's not the totality of their policies.
And then we've got Colonial Robinson saying, I don't think they have a
Wait,
problem.
wait. Hold on. We're just going to rush past that. So I was very clear in my stance. I think there is higher predictive validity if you want to understand AOC and Bernie, that not that the only thing they want is there is higher predictive validity that will allow you to track their movements if you take them from the position of you need to soak the rich. Now, if somebody would like to say, hey, that thing that you were very clear about, I disagree. There's lower predictive validity in that. And if instead you think of them as somebody that's really here fighting for the people, then give me your breakdown. And I would like to know, what policies do you think they should be pursuing if we're going to do that? The only thing I have encountered is tax billionaires. That's it. Now, if that's just the only thing that's getting through my frame of reference and everything is bouncing off of me and you've got a nice, insightful, simple thing that you can give me, here's what they're looking to do, I'm super open to that. I want high predictive validity. I'm not trying to win. I'm not on a team. So by all means, give it to me. But please don't pretend that I have not been clear about my stance. All right. Sorry. Next.
Just so you know, they replied with, you assume that from an emotional motivation. I'm saying educate yourself on their ideas and goals. The only thing you have encountered because you don't research it.
Okay. So one, showing up here, you've done me truly an honor of giving me your attention and engagement. And I really want to build the community on one simple foundation that would help a lot. So I hope that you're a very insightful person and that what will follow, because that comment, you're pointing me in a direction, very helpful. Tom, you have not done enough research. You should go do research. Cool. I'll take that criticism on board. I feel like I've done quite a bit, but I'm super open. Frame of reference, and I'm bouncing your bullets off of me. Let me open up, accept them as nuggets of gold, allow them to hit me in the head so that I can bend down and pick up this thing. So certainly for now, I will say, okay, I accept that I have not done enough research. Now, what would be amazing, my request always to the crew here, can you give me in 35 words or less, like what's that thing that they believe that you think would be like really helpful for me? Like if you don't think of us as combative, but instead well-intentioned people that want to get somewhere, that want to understand something together, can you give me the unlock rather than just saying I don't have the unlock? Drew, Eunice, when I say that, do you guys get where I'm going with that? Or is this one of those things that people just let me talk and it's all dumb and you guys are like, Jesus Christ, here we go again? Because that feels super clear to me. And look, I'm very open to continuing to push for this in the community because this is what I really want the community to be. Or we can take it in another direction and I can just start yelling at people.
Look up Bernie's stance on healthcare. So healthcare is one of those. I feel like, Ricky, I love you, but that was a bad example because his healthcare policy is we can use increased tax on the rich in order to fund.
I think you're going to find that's the answer at the end of all of it. But that's my real stance. So what's the one that does not end in tax billionaires? Chat?
The SAVE Act.
Sorry, say that again.
The SAVE Act, the voting act that just was passed recently.
Okay.
They wanted to not do that so that way they can increase freedom to the polls. And that freedom,
and
I would say
if
freedom,
you
not freedom
had
access
to guess why they want to do that, what are they going to ask people to vote for?
Themselves?
To do tax the billionaires.
Oh, okay. Tax the billionaires.
So I get, hey, fair enough, but I'm just saying this is like, we're just,
got it.
From a policy perspective, their agenda is that success, fairness, wealth has become trapped by this very small number of people. And to me, it is a deep, profound, fundamental misunderstanding of what has gone wrong.
All right. I hear we got Ian in the waiting
cause.
room. I hear we have Ian in the waiting room.
Let's go. Do I need headphones?
But I can give you AirPods.
Whatever is going to make a good experience for our community.
Yes.
They're going to hear him.
Yeah, they're going to.
But let's see how it sounds on the laptop, and then if you want more clarity, you can use the AirPods.
Yeah, let's bring him in. All right, chat. Me and Eunice will be moderating. We'll be in there. So if you guys have anything, let us know. We flagged it to Tom and gave him.
Thank you, sir. Guys, this is our first live guest. If you like this, we'll do more of it. If you hate this, this will be it. And I am ready for Ian whenever you are.
Yep, I'm good.
I don't see him on the thing.
I just got an email that he was in the waiting room.
He should be calling in. We should get an option to call in. And we would get that ringing.
First time awkwardness here, chat. Bear with us. Bear with us.
You got the cursor.
Okie dokie Sophie. He is a very well respected political scientist, macro guy, has a very strong view of what's playing out in the world from Ukraine, Russia, where he's really deep, really strong, certainly paying very close attention to Trump, tariffs, economic stuff, what's happening with China, Israel, Palestine somewhat, but I think the thing he's probably most comfortable on is Trump, tariffs, Russia, Ukraine would be my guess. But we'll ping him about what's going on in Israel, Gaza, and see where he goes with that. And yes, chat, there are guests that I think you guys will enjoy engaging with in real time about things that are happening right now, this minute. So like Drew was saying, if you guys, assuming we can actually get him in the feed, if you guys drop your questions in the feed, we'll get them in. If there's a lot of heat behind something, how about that? That would be great. But we do want to know what you guys want to hear about.
And make sure to @me me if you really want me to see it. Or put it in the Discord thread.
Yeah, the 3 questions that you guys have sent in already, I'm liking. Or at least that Drew and Eunice have. Oh, I just heard a sound.
There it is.
So you gotta press that green button, Drew. You can on your screen.
Okay.
Oh.
Right, there he is. You have to unmute himself. Yeah, you can just be that.
I think you have to unmute, Ian. I cannot hear you.
Is there an audio thing there?
Nope. Feel free to take over.
Bear with us, Ian. This is our first time doing this live, of course. There's going to be some technical woes, but we are working diligently here behind the scenes. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Hopefully you can.
It says he's muted on his end.
Yeah, on his side, he should see.
So, Ian, it's saying that you're muted on your side. He is unclear how that could be, judging by body language, Eric.
It's the same thing that happened to you, Drew, where it's you had to press the mic.
Let me join, and then I will see what we can do.
All right, bear with us, Ian. We are testing something here on our side.
Yeah, so.
I heard more sounds.
Okay, so there should be, next to the box, does he see a settings menu?
Ian, next to your window, there should be a settings menu.
Yeah. So
you see that.
And then there should be the mic.
There should be a mic symbol there.
Maybe toggle
with
that.
The traditional muted look. We still don't hear you. Should we do a nice simple, he drops, he comes back?
Yeah, we're not getting anything from his side.
Ian, let's try this if you don't mind. Drop and then come right back, and we'll see if this is just a magic reboot problem.
I have him open on my side, so I think he's not seeing that mic.
Okay, take 2. No, still muted. Well, Well, this is fun. Eric, do you see his audio on your side?
Yeah, it says it has it's X'd out. His mic is X'd out, kind of like when you're on Zoom and it shows that he's muted.
All right, the team is scrambling here behind the scenes, Ian, to see.
All right.
Need that death loop.
Are you taking over?
Sorry, go ahead. Because on the main screen, Ian, you're gonna see Tom in the big box. There should be the mute button right next to your independent chat window. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We're gonna send you over a Zoom link, and then
And
we
he
can
can
just
hear you talking into your mic.
I believe, yeah, he's responding. Yeah, copy. So it's gotta love Ecamm, everybody.
Do we? Is that what we have to do?
No, we hate it.
OBS next.
Okay, so Eric, are you trying something specific? Otherwise, we need to reboot, like actually reboot, not drop the call, but reboot.
Yeah, it's not
if
a-
that
it's not-
doesn't
it's-
work, we
it's-
need to give this man his time back.
It's definitely not a reboot. Let's send a Zoom link, and then we could try it that way.
All right, Zoom link will be on its way, Ian.
I'll send it to Ian Wyatt right now.
Chat, we having fun yet? We use Ecamm and a healthy dose of not testing our systems enough before we go live.
Hindsight's 2020. Yeah, we can't get blamed for
With
it.
who? We called from outside?
Yes, from my
And it worked
laptop.
fine.
And I see a Zoom button, and even when I just jumped in, I have a mute button on mine.
So we're throwing shade at Ian. We're just like,
No,
he's just
hey,
not clicking
man,
the button.
It's a different system, different folks,
That's what it
different
is,
strokes.
everybody. That's
So let's
what
just
it
go to
is.
Zoom.
Let's
That's
just cut to the chase.
That's a normal one that everybody's comfortable with and seen before.
Scurbadubber, thank you. Things do happen. Yes, indeed.
Oop.
Random B thinks you guys are tech gods and that this is on Ian's side. We'll find out.
Can you? Zoom is open on your side. Can we start the meeting and everything? You can have cursor. Yeah.
Nothing like the people on camera scrambling to get things done. Paul, you know what it is. Yeah, bullish. Unfortunately, I think you are correct.
I don't think it's allowing me because I'm using Ecamm.
Fun partaking in the pilot. Well, thank you, not your day. Appreciate that. Can lead a horse to water, Phil.
You saying Zoom is not letting you start?
Well, thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that. Did Ian sabotage? Yeah, Ian's
Oh,
deep
okay. Hold on,
state.
let me see something.
Ian's deep state is trying to hold us back. He does not want these truths to get out. Always do a sound check. November 47, they said they did, and I believe them. I don't have any reason to believe that they didn't.
All right, everybody's a professional now.
This is how it goes, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to the YouTube game.
While we're waiting,
That doesn't bother me. I don't understand why that bothers people.
what?
This is the whole Douglas Murray thing. Let's say you've never heard of China.
Okay.
If I've got time, yeah, give me your take. What you got? Make shit up. I don't care.
Make shit up.
I will parse it. If it's entertaining, I'll listen. If it's not, I won't. If it's useful, I'll really listen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't understand people's fear of people who don't know what they're talking about to have them talk. This is how you learn about something. You try some bad ideas. People slap you around a bit. You upgrade your ideas. You come back in for more. And over time, you get sharp. And we are in the era where that's going to happen live on camera. And if people have the balls to do it,
People are scared though.
clap for them. People are scared what?
They have a fear of looking
Stupid.
stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
My superpower. The reason we are
Oh yeah, because you're
recording
not afraid to
this
get embarrassed.
from a mansion
Yeah.
is because I'm not afraid to look stupid.
Yeah. Have
I
you?
literally just had somebody offer me a piece of their company.
Uh,
And in the conversation, they were like, you ask the deepest questions. And I was like, no, I don't. I'm just not afraid to look stupid. And you are so not used to that
yeah.
that you're confusing me just trying to go, wow, I really don't understand this. I have to get to cause and effect. So I will drag people down. I'm like, listen, I can just nod and smile, or I can keep asking you till I understand. You tell me which you
Yeah.
prefer. And he's like, I want you to keep asking. Cool. All I'm trying to do is get to cause and effect with absolutely no fear about, I know I'm going to look dumb to
Yeah.
somebody that, this guy is clearly smarter than me, knows a lot more than me about that thing. But I'm like, I can track cause and effect. So
Right.
we can get down to that point. And people always confuse it for superpower. And the reality is I'm just fighting that urge because I'm embarrassed. It's not like I don't get embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's that I have an algorithm running in my brain that says, if you keep going, you'll actually be able to understand this. But you've got to like keep asking the question from different angles until you can repeat it back and that person goes, yes,
Yeah.
you understand this. But nobody fucking does it. It's crazy to me.
Do you do that in just like regular day-to-day scenarios too? Like if you go
At
out on a
all times, unless I realize
Yeah.
it's just better to nod and smile right
Yeah.
now, which don't get me wrong. There are times that I just nod and smile.
Yeah.
But if there's any utility in understanding the thing, then I will understand the thing.
Okay. Would you say that if someone were to be like, "Hey, I'll give you $20 to do something silly," does that also apply there too?
No, and
Like-
I don't. That sounds so unrelated. I don't even know what to do with that. And I'm not the guy you go to when you're like, do this silly thing.
Because you don't get
for
embarrassed.
me."
You say you don't get embarrassed.
No. I said I do get embarrassed.
Well,
my superpower
you
is that
push
I
it
can
down.
be embarrassed
Yeah.
longer than the next person.
Yeah.
I have the same discomfort. I hate being embarrassed. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But I have found the only way to make progress in life is to test what you understand, get the internal feedback of, ooh, I can tell I'm now on like uneven ground. I don't know this well.
Yeah.
But now I've mapped that very important thing.
Yeah.
And because people love to make you look stupid, they will tell you. Unfortunately, most of them just tell you you're dumb.
Yeah.
But every now and then you really do find the person that goes, you're dumb for this reason. And then it's like, this is incredible because now I can take that in,
Internalize
run
it,
it through
yeah.
filters of
Yeah.
like, does this connect from a cause and effect standpoint? But truly, Eunice, most people hate being embarrassed so much
Yeah.
that when they ask themselves, which we will all ask ourselves, why am I doing this? The answer they come up with is, I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And they stop. And so you can really bully most people into silence, even as like a
agree.
rando on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And people fucking love that shit.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy. Just steer by. What am I trying to do in life? Like I realized recently, you know, when people are like, what's the biggest business mistake you've ever made?
Yeah.
I've always been like, what is the biggest business mistake? It's now so clear to me.
What is it?
Making a high fidelity video game right off the jump. We should have made like stick figures, moving
Yeah.
around, map out the whole flow.
The whole flow.
And then been like, okay, now make it look cool.
Yeah.
That was a level of idiotic that cost me so much money,
Yeah.
but now I know. So it's like, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
So we're not repeating the mistakes anymore. We're moving so much faster.
Yeah.
But I had to be willing to try it to learn.
Wow. We've got
So while we wait, I will. Oh, do we have?
We've got
Super
some
chats
people in the
listening?
chat talking about being embarrassed
Let's go, Super
and
chat.
whatnot.
Let's go. No, Super chat,
Wolfram
sorry.
Charlie says Tom's desire to find the truth is greater than his embarrassment of not knowing something.
Yes.
We've got Daenerys Morales saying, "Hey Tom, grateful for you and the team. What would be your recommendation on the books that teach you how to ask questions of cause, and effect?"
There are
this
no
thanks
books
in
that I
advance.
know of on that one. However, if you go have a conversation with ChatGPT about thinking from first principles, you will have everything you need. It is the deadliest simple thing in the universe is to think from first principles as a process. It will be very hard to identify the actual first principle from which you are going to build up. But the pursuit of it now with AI is just, it's dummy easy. You just have to do it. You have to have the impulse for it.
Rekka Annie says, "Embarrassing for the first 30 seconds and uncomfortable for a couple minutes, and then whatever, find a solution and move on."
Isn't it crazy? Because that's right. But isn't it crazy that if enough people point and laugh at you, you can control the world?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Do you think that's the start of people's like villain arcs then? Because people like point and laugh at them, and then it's kind of like a
That's what works for a lot of people.
yeah.
Listen, evolution gives you that tool for a reason.
Yeah.
Because on my darkest days, Eunice, I promise you the following statement is true. On my darkest days, I'm not thinking about the kids that I want to help. I'm not thinking about helping people with mindset. I'm thinking about saying fuck you to the people that are convinced I'm going to fail.
Yeah.
That's where I go when it's really hard. Like hard.
Yeah.
Is I will not let them be right.
Right.
That's weird. But that's really true of the human animal.
That is.
So.
I mean, me and my sister have a joke that
ringing. We're getting ringing. Drew?
they're out there. I think they're.
I don't know, Erica, you meant to answer that? You're not Eric.
That's
G.
That's Herson.
You guys are about to see a wild G.
Herson.
He's real, everybody.
Sarah said, that's so human.
I still cannot hear him. And sorry to talk over that. Sounds like it's going to be a wonderful comment.
David Douglas said, spite is so powerful.
Oh, there he is.
Here I am.
Ian Bremmer. Oh, my goodness. Yes.
Okay, look at that.
Woo.
Okay.
Okay. And
So I'm
just
the guinea pig for ECAM. Is that what you're telling me?
unfortunately, Ian, yes, you are. And now, can we be honest that we were the problem?
Sure, I don't care.
We were the problem. We were the problem. Ian, my absolute apologies. We will get better. We'll do better, Ian, but I am very grateful to have you back. We are live right now, despite all those technical difficulties. And so you being the first person to join our live community means the world to me. You are a thinker that I've returned to over and over again. If you don't mind, because we have a live audience, I've given them a primer already, but if you don't mind taking like a 15, 20 second, just who is Ian Bremmer?
I am a political scientist that started a company almost 30 years ago trying to help us all understand where the world is heading. So we've got about 250 people around the world. They're mostly analysts. They cover countries, sectors, themes. It is based in New York City, but it's global. It's certainly not left or right partisan. It's all based on analysis, and that's what I am and who I am and all that.
I love it, man. Well, jumping into the analysis. So, Trump keeps things interesting. How are you feeling about his handling of the tariffs?
I guess depends on what hour you ask me, since it's changed about 10 times over the course of the last week since Liberation Day. Obviously, the markets don't like it. Most American voters don't like it. Most American allies don't like it. And most American adversaries don't like it. So it's hard to find a policy that has been so universally panned so broadly in such a short period of time. But I think the biggest challenge is the uncertainty, is the fact that the world's most powerful country, the world's strongest economy, is actually driving the most geopolitical uncertainty. And it's doing that in many ways, but principally right now through trade and tariff policy. We have now applied the highest level of global tariffs that the world has seen since the 1930s. But it's been on again, off again in so many ways. Is it 10% or is it more on most countries around the world? Are there going to be major exceptions for certain types of goods? Or is U.S.-China going to be in a trade embargo environment? Will there be dramatic changes in 90 days, or will there be further suspensions? Are there going to be a number of huge deals that get cut between the United States and other countries around the world, or will those be underwhelming? All of those things completely unclear a week
At a meta level, though, do you think that this level of chaos can only be described as negative? Like the uncertainty, just no matter what he's got in mind, the uncertainty is creating an unacceptable level of economic trauma? Or do you see it some other way?
I'd rather have chaos that gets to a better place than have a trade war with everybody that leads to a fragmentation of the global economy. So I don't think that chaos is the worst possible short-term outcome, but long-term chaos and a lack of trust and an erosion of America's reputational power, reputational capital, where other countries don't trust the United States to do what it says it's going to do, will lead to behavior that we Americans don't like. It'll lead to fewer people sending their kids to be educated in American universities, fewer people wanting to buy real estate in the US from outside the country, fewer people want to work in the United States with high skill set that is difficult to substitute for domestically presently in the US. It'll lead to other countries trying to de-risk their long-term trade and investment exposure to the United States and do deeper deals with each other, like you're seeing with Xi Jinping's trip to Vietnam and across Southeast Asia this week, like you're seeing between the Canadians and the Europeans right now, like you see between the Brazilians and the Europeans right now. I mean, so many other India and UK or Australia and New Zealand. I mean, so much hedging and trying to risk away from a United States that countries feel like they can't have the same level of exposure to that they have historically.
And how do you think this plays out? So he's got, let's say, till the midterms to get this right. Do you see this, as Ray Dalio has warned, as a fundamental breakdown of the international economic order that's going to disrupt all of trade? Or do you think that, nope, he's going to restabilize, everything's going to be fine, bit bumpy, but we're going to be good?
I think that it's in between those two things, Tom. I think when it comes to a lot of American allies that are much smaller than the U.S., they are desperate for deals. So just this week, the Japanese are sending the trade minister and a large delegation with an offer. And that offer will include buying a lot of U.S. LNG. It'll include significant Japanese additional investments into the U.S. In high tech, in automotive, in other areas, and will also include trying to bring the Japanese yen down from the mid 140s to 120-ish, which I don't have a clear policy for yet, but they're trying to formulate one. And I'm sure that will be announced as a huge win by Trump, by Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, by others. I think the South Koreans are oriented towards a deal. You've got a country like Mexico with a leader that has 85% approval. She can get anything done she wants, and she is trying highly trying to get deals done on greater crackdown on fentanyl trafficking, greater crackdown on illegal migrants coming into the U.S. and the border, all sorts of things that she is trying to get done for America. So I think there will be a number of countries, Tom, where in the next 1-2 months, the Trump administration is able to announce deals, maintains 10% additional tariffs, has additional revenue collection, but things become normalized. But I don't think that's going to be true with Europe. I think with the EU, it's going to be a lot harder. It's 27 countries. They have to coordinate. They're very bureaucratic. They move slowly. And trade is a core competency of the Europeans. I also think that with China, we are in the throes of what feels like a trade war. And even if the Americans pull back more dramatically than they already have, and Trump might well do that, because this morning you may have seen China already said we're not going to buy any more Boeings. Chinese have already started to say that they're going to be tougher on critical minerals exports. These are things that will hit the Americans pretty hard if they're implemented fully. But even if they don't, the Chinese are utterly convinced that the United States wants to contain them. And that means that the two largest economies in the world are going to further decouple from each other. And there will, of course, be significant economic cost globally as a consequence of that. So I don't come down in the camp that this is all the precipice of a disaster and globalization will be completely over. I don't accept that. I think that's overstated. But the idea that Trump is suddenly going to just cut big, beautiful deals with everybody and we can go back to where we were ex ante, except America's in a stronger position, that's clearly not true. And one other reason for that is that the U.S. is not only picking fights on trade. The U.S. is also picking fights in terms of the way it treats other countries and their citizens when they are tourists in the U.S., when they are students in the U.S. They're undermining rule of law in the United States. They are.
You're saying Trump is undermining rule of law?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's trying to erode the checks and balances that the executive has from the judiciary, from the legislature, and that he's ended the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, for example, suspended that. There's been a bunch of things that the U.S. has done that makes the U.S. feel less trustworthy by allies around the world.
I want to get to that in a minute, but I want to go back first to the implications here in China. So my belief system rides on the back of one of the following statement is one of the most important pillars of how I'm thinking about this moment. And that is you absolutely must decouple from China having such control over your manufacturing base. Even if I can't get people on board with that returning jobs will help the working class here in America, that you can't have your largest military rival, your only pure military rival, control your manufacturing base. So do you think from that perspective, something had to be done and this may or may not be the right path?
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. The United States exported its entire semiconductor industry to Taiwan, 100 miles off of the coast of the PRC, right? I mean, that's easily as stupid, maybe even stupider than the Germans saying we're going to get all of our energy from Russia, right? I mean, it makes short-term market sense, short-term profits for corporations that don't care about the long-term strategic viability of the country, and it undermines the interests of the country. So absolutely, you're right. And my point, and the reason why I was going beyond trade and talking about all of these other issues, is if you are focused on a significant and vulnerable exposure that the United States has to its principal adversary, which, by the way, is at parity with the U.S. in almost every technology that matters, and ahead of the United States in a lot of core technologies, then you cannot pick fights with your allies at the same time. You can't drive your allies to do more with China. You bring.
Why do you think he's doing it? Why is he doing it? Is he a madman, or does he have an agenda?
Oh no, he's not a madman. I mean, he's completely convinced that he's right about everything, and he doesn't listen to experts. And he doesn't have either a lot of policy expertise, nor is he patient to get it. And so, he basically says, well, I've always been convinced that these countries are all ripping us off, China and Europe and Mexico and Canada, and even countries where the U.S. runs trade surpluses like Australia and Brazil, and America's the strongest country in the world. And I'm 78, and they just tried to assassinate me. They shot me in the head, so I don't have much time. I need to do all of this now. So I'm just going to use my power, my position of strength, and beat up on everybody simultaneously. And that's
going to be the result of that.
He needs allies. Doesn't think he needs allies.
What's going to be the result, though? Is America going to end up isolated? Do we have enough juice to isolate China?
No, not by ourselves. I mean, again, Tom, you hit on the correct point, which is that there is a big country out there that is not only an adversary to the U.S., but has the ability long-term to outcompete the U.S. unless we are smart. And if we want to win, and if we want to ensure that our economy is actually working and that we have a level of sovereignty over our decisions in the U.S. and globally, we need to be out-competing the Chinese. So, for example, the CHIPS Act, which is one of the smartest things that Biden did, and is completely aligned with Trump's desire to outcompete China and reshore semiconductors in the U.S., Trump has said he's going to blow up. Why? Because it was Biden's. That's just stupid. It's just stupid, right? You can't play politics with something this important. You have to get out of your way, and you have to think about what's in the country's interest long term. And so maybe you do have fights with the Europeans, but you don't fight them simultaneously. Maybe you are concerned that you want to redo your deal with the Mexicans and Canadians, which Trump got done to begin with, the USMCA. That was Trump's deal. And now he's telling the Canadians 51st state. And now he's telling the Mexicans, 25% automotive tariffs. He's picking these huge fights at the same time that he's trying to address a long-term structural deep issue that really matters with the Chinese. And he's driving other countries away from America. America's
right,
friends.
You said something about Trump that I thought was very interesting. And that was by far the most dysfunctional and kleptocratic, referring to America, and unfree political system of the advanced industrial democracies. Talk to me about the kleptocratic part. How do you see Trump fitting into that? Is Trump a cause, a symptom? If we wanted to map your mind about the character of Trump as it will play out politically, what are the few beliefs about him that we would need to understand?
Well, I said that in a structural way. It is getting worse under Trump, but it is not new. The idea that Trump is responsible for kleptocracy in the United States is farcical. The U.S. has been by far the most coin-operated of advanced industrial democracies for decades. I mean, one thing that almost all Americans agree on is that the United States is the most politically dysfunctional and kleptocratic of advanced political systems. Americans agree on that. They just don't agree on the cause. A lot of people would say, oh, well, it's because of the Democrats. Others would say, oh, it's because of Trump. When the reality is, it's a dual system where people with money have access to power and have different standards in terms of policing and rule of law applying to them than people that don't have that money. And we see that operate. We've seen it operate for decades now. That's why it costs billions of dollars to run our election, and it takes over a year to get done. The Canadians have an election that costs a few $1 million and takes 5 weeks. Which system is more democratic? Obviously not ours, right? I mean, those companies expect to get something for the billions of dollars that they donate to American political campaigns, and they do get something. They get outcomes. I mean, we saw this with TikTok, right? Trump used to be opposed to TikTok. He said it was a national security concern. He was concerned about it before Biden was. And then he got lots of money from Jeff Yass and other investors into TikTok, and he did a complete 180 on the issue. Now it's no longer a national security concern. Now he's willing to cut a deal. Now he's extending the lifespan of TikTok without a deal, even as he's putting 145% tariffs on the Chinese. Why? Well, because the investors to TikTok are getting what they paid for. And that's true for crypto, and it's true for oil and gas. And on the Democratic side, it's been true for big pharma, and it's true for retail. It's true for trial lawyers. I mean, goes on and on and on. This is a huge problem. And Trump was elected in part because it was seen as a huge problem, but he is not going to fix it. I mean, he's actually, in my view, made it considerably worse. When you take the wealthiest person in the world, you give them a political position and more access to the presidency than anybody else, at the same time that he continues to own and run, sort of 6 major multinational corporations. It's hard to even identify what a conflict of interest is in that environment.
Let me give you my take on that. Obviously, I have a frame of reference as a longtime entrepreneur. I get that that's going to have skewed my worldview very dramatically. I look at Elon Musk and I say, you have literally, for sure, the greatest living capital allocator, full stop. Possibly the greatest capital allocator ever. What he's doing is just absolutely unbelievable in the world of business. And you get him to focus on doing things inside of the government to help us allocate capital well. For me, while I obviously understand the potential conflict of interest, I want this cabinet of very effective business operators to come in and point out systems that are broken, how we can fix them, where there's fraud, waste, and abuse, not to get sucked into the, the typical language there. But that all makes sense to me. And given the level of transparency that the Trump administration has put forward, I'm very open to saying, okay, cool. These guys are proximity to power for sure. They're going to be able to make policies that are good for them, but we can see everything that's happening. And I would rather have these guys than the historical bureaucrats that I've gotten playing these kind of roles. Do you have a similarly charitable view, or do you think that I'm so distorted by my years as an entrepreneur that I cannot see the kleptocracy that's happening right before my eyes?
No, I appreciate your honesty. I always have, Tom. And of course, I'm a political scientist, but I started a multinational corporation myself. I'm a founder. I'm an entrepreneur. And I never would have the success that I've had if I didn't start in the United States, which is a system that so, promotes entrepreneurship, unlike what we see in Europe, for example, unlike what we see in Japan, for example. So, I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm not an electric car whiz. So I don't have an ability to judge Elon as an entrepreneur except for by looking at his results. But this is a guy that has shown, right, that he can build world-class corporations at scale, or at least lead them and finance them, right? So, clearly he deserves, I think, a lot of attention and credit for that. I have no problem with that. And if he was prepared to put those companies in a blind trust, I would have no problem. In fact, I would welcome his talent in trying to create more efficiencies in the United States government. I don't like the idea of people that have expertise in one area believing they have expertise in every area. And so I see Elon as opining on democratic systems in Europe and saying that the AfD should win, and showing up on video calls with them, which is considered to be a neo-Nazi party by a strong majority of German citizens. And the rest of the government won't work with them because of that. I think he's damaging the United States and its core alliances by doing that. And he's doing it inside the Trump administration. I have a serious problem with that. And I also have a problem with him meeting with Narendra Modi in Blair House, which is part of the White House complex. And it's not clear whether he's doing it in his official capacity running Doge or his unofficial capacity building business. When Trump was asked by a journalist that evening, Trump answered honestly. They said, in what capacity is Elon meeting Modi? And Trump said, I don't know. And that's the right answer. How could Trump know? He could be doing either, both, who knows? But that's not okay. If Modi came to the United States and brought, Ambani or Adani into a meeting with Trump or met with Trump separately, we in the United States, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, would say that India was becoming a banana republic. Like, that's just not acceptable, all right? So, but the fact that the United States government is now doing that, I think really undermines capability. So, in short, I think that what Elon is bringing to Doge, the fact that we now have some world-class AI and technology capabilities that otherwise would never be applied to a very bureaucratized U.S. regulatory system, and is going to look for regulations that are destructive of value, that are overlapping in different departments. I think there are a lot of countries around the world that are going to take that as a model and try to do the same thing inside their countries, and they won't be as effective. So I think there will be efficiencies that come from Doge. It is clear that that's not the only thing that they're doing, and I truly mistrust the conflict of interest, especially for someone already worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Like, he doesn't need more money. So it would be trivial for him to put his companies in blind trust and not have those conflicts of interest if he so chose. He chose not to. And I cannot afford as an American citizen to give him the benefit of the doubt for choosing not to have rules that apply to everybody else in US politics over 200 years of history. Those rules should not suddenly apply to Elon. I'm not okay with giving him the benefit of the doubt for that. I'm very interested in your views on that, Tom.
Well, so I think that level of friction is good. I think it's good that you and I view this very differently because I believe that the best ideas are arrived at not by one person convincing somebody else, but by there being dynamic tension between the two and them having to find this compromised way forward. So I think it's good. Given how hard I have worked in my life to achieve the kind of success that Elon has achieved and found it with my talent and intelligence and interests just not possible. He's excelling on a level that my imagination failed to offer as a possibility. Like until I saw it, I did not think running that many companies, engaging with the world at the level of engineering would yield the kind of results that he's done. So I think it's wise to be skeptical, but at the same time, for me, I come at it with, I want the smartest people on planet Earth aimed at the problem of making America the most successful country, and then getting a sensible immigration policy so that we can continue to be a beacon for all the people all the world over to come here and to out China by being the most American thing ever, and not by trying to out China by being better at being Chinese. And so in that milieu, I get that I'm taking a risk, but I fall on the other side of that where I'm like, I get it. It's different. It's a breach in decorum. I might look at it funny if I didn't align with the things that he's done in life are the exact kind of things that I've tried to do. And I know how hard they are. And for whatever success I've had, it was extremely difficult. And so for him to be able to do it at such a scale, I'm just like, yes, that's the kind of person that I want aimed at this problem. But you brought up AI earlier, and I know the community here is very eager to hear you give us your view. I, for one, think AI is a meteorite screaming towards the earth. And not that it's going to destroy everything, but that nothing will be the same, literally nothing, top to bottom, nothing will be the same on the other side of this. So curious to get your take, what you think the impacts of AI are going to be.
I agree. And look, in the context of that, there's going to be so much change in the geopolitical system, in the economic system, and how societies function in the next 5 years because of AI. Maybe the conversations we're having about, is it problematic or not for Elon to have a conflict of interest? Maybe we're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, right? Maybe it just doesn't matter. Yeah. Maybe, your point is like, you just need to go all in on your smartest people. And if that means the US ends up to be less of a democracy, well, hey, if we're efficient and we can grow and we can outcompete China, maybe that's fine. We weren't much of a democracy anyway. There are a lot of Americans that feel that way. There are a lot of Americans that say, look, I've given these guys a chance, Democrats and Republicans, for the last 40 years, and all they've done is enrich themselves. They haven't actually taken care of the average American. So why do I care so much about this ostensible democracy? Why don't I just go with people who are going to break a bunch of things? And I think that's, Planet Elon in that regard is quite popular, especially to a lot of young men who haven't felt so good about where the leadership of America has been driving them. So I get that. Now, on AI front, I think here is an area that is, even the last 3 months, if you look at these new models that are, they're world-class capabilities, they're outcompeting humans in top math competitions, in science competitions. High level employees in almost every sector are now using AI to improve their work. And I think it's a very short leap from that to displacement of very large numbers of white collar workers. You've got tens of thousands of people in New York and in London doing risk management in banking industry, I think we're a year and a half away from needing 10% of those employees, for example. Right? I see this happening
It's
in
crazy.
so many industries, including my own. I mean, there's so many things that are happening inside my company that like we have to every month rethink, okay, are our employees capable of using this technology well, or are they going to get displaced? And being very open and honest with it, right?
Yeah,
Because
same here.
otherwise someone's going to do it. So I do see it as completely transformative. For me, the thing that I find most interesting, which is coming like this year, is as AI starts training on our individual data, either on the cloud or eventually on our smartphones. Because right now, you and I, the most dysfunctional thing that we do in associating ourselves with the world around us is that when we open our smartphone, we are on like 100 different apps. We're going from one to the other to the other. You and I just experienced that in trying to get this live stream going, right? Now, that is going to change radically when AI starts training on us. We will have an individual AI agent. And so instead of just being able to use AI to have a voice, suddenly we're going to use an AI to act for us. It'll become our most essential relationship that knows us better than any person does.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is really going to change humanity. It'll make us much more capable. It'll bring knowledge on world-class knowledge on medicine, on training and education,
That's going to be huge.
on business to human beings that have access to it, no matter what country they're living in, whether or not they have infrastructure around them. All they need is that smartphone and that app. So they just need access to a battery, electricity, and then they're off to the races. They're globalized. But it also is going to change how we think, who we are, how we interact with others. And for people that don't have it, they're not going to be like human beings. And I worry a lot about that. I don't think that we have the governance and the society structure to handle that kind of transformation that quickly. So
I'm going to need more words on that. So I wrote a comic book. This is 5 or 6 years ago now, exploring this moment. And the punchline of my comic was that there would be an inevitable schism between what I'll now call the new Puritans, who refuse to embrace AI, who refuse to integrate technology into their body, and then people that embrace it whole hog. And that still is how I think that this is going to play out, that there becomes a religious friction between people who believe that integrating technology and going that deep on AI is somehow an affront to God. And I think that's going to create the schism. But I hear you saying something slightly differently. So where do you think the friction point is?
I think your friction point is real. I am a little less worried about that than I am about the, say, 2-3 billion people that won't have access to AI even though they'd like it.
Because they can't afford it? Because governments keep them from accessing it?
I suspect more the former than the latter. I think that we're likely to have a period of, it might be 10 years, it might be 1 year, but look, there's been a digital divide, and you've got a whole bunch of people that don't have access to the internet right now around the world, and they're still able to exist in this economy and society. It's just, there's a huge gap there, right? But with AI, you're talking about creating something that's different from Homo sapiens, right? I mean, once you are engaging with AI real time, it's changing who you are. It's changing your brain function and capacity. You're becoming kind of a hybrid, right? And you wouldn't be able to imagine not engaging with it real time. You'll never shut it off, right? And I think that those people that don't have access to that will lose. They may gain something in terms of existential humanity. That's a philosophical conversation. But in terms of access to power and capital and the ability to like develop and grow in a society that is speeding up ever faster, those are people that will not be treated as fellow humans. And
Wow,
we've
that's
always been bad at that, right? And
yes, we have. That's very interesting. All right, I could go on for that forever, but we have you. You're such an expert on what's going on in Russia, Ukraine. If you don't mind, give us a quick take. Trump had talked about, I'm going to end this war on day one. Needless to say, I don't think anybody believed that was going to happen. It didn't happen. It seems to be stalling out. No, he's even said, look, I was being somewhat sarcastic, I think is his exact quote. Is Putin playing games? Does Putin have any interest in resolving this? Or is this going to drag out for years?
So Trump has used a carrot and stick approach on Russia, Ukraine. The problem is that he's used stick against Ukraine and carrot against Russia when he should be using a more even-handed approach. His stick approach against Ukraine has been effective in my view. I was just with the former Ukrainian foreign minister here in my office a few days ago, and he admitted as such, which is, he wasn't super comfortable with it. But the fact was that when Trump suspended intelligence and military support to Ukraine, which Biden never would have done, and he didn't suspend it forever. He suspended it for a couple of weeks. But the Ukrainians took notice and they were like, okay, we cannot mess around with this guy because we will lose the war very quickly. So if he's telling us that he wants a ceasefire unconditionally, we have to give him a ceasefire unconditionally. And that is indeed what Ukraine did. He demanded it, and Ukraine immediately said, yes, sir. Right? So now you have Trump going to Putin saying, okay, let's have a conversation about a ceasefire. And Trump's talking about all the things the Americans can do with Russia. They can end the sanctions, and they can co-invest in the Arctic, and they can work together on, sort of the Middle East, all these things. And yet he hasn't been saying, and if you don't, like, there's going to be holy hell to pay. And Putin,
he's starting to talk a little bit more like that now. I don't know if you think he's serious. He the only thing he can do that's really going to disrupt Russia is stop their exporting of oil and natural gas. Do you think he'll really play that card?
That's not true. There are lots of things he can do. He can say, and Russia, if you don't agree to a ceasefire, I'm going to provide a lot more support to Ukraine.
Yeah, sorry, I meant non-militarily.
Oh, well, but actually Trump's own advisors, like Keith Kellogg, we're saying that before the inauguration. They were saying that, look, if there's a deal, great. And if there's not, I'm going to hit you hard. And, that is the reality. That they've also talked about sanctions directly on the Russian central bank. They've talked about taking sanctions against Russian energy export, which would bring oil prices up. But in an environment where OPEC is pumping a lot more, and where prices are so low that the American frackers are actually starting to pull back on drilling because it's no longer profitable, there's a lot more flexibility for Trump to hit the Chinese and the Indians on that front. We've got oil prices that have been touching under 60 right now.
Whoa.
That's very different than when they're at 80, right? So, yeah, I do think there's flexibility, but it's interesting that Trump in the last just 24 hours, right, has been talking about, well, this was Ukraine and Biden's war. This wasn't Putin responsible for it. It's been an interesting issue. It's the one foreign policy issue where you can consistently see a difference in what Trump is saying publicly from what his own advisors are saying. And you don't see that on Iran. You don't see it on Gaza. You don't see it on China. But on Russia, Trump has been so much more cautious about a willingness to ever say anything critical about Putin. At this point, Putin is starting to make Trump look weak on this issue. He's starting to imply that I don't need to actually do anything that you're telling me. I don't need a ceasefire. I can just keep going. I can launch missiles and kill dozens of people, including kids, on Palm Sunday, which you saw direct condemnation from a number of U.S. top officials. You saw it from Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. You saw it from Rick Grenell, Special Envoy. You saw it from Kellogg. You didn't see it from Trump. Trump said, well, no, the Kremlin told me that was a mistake. Usually, Trump doesn't usually give the benefit of the doubt to folks like that.
Well, people think he does to Putin all the time. Do you think that he is a shill for Putin, or do you think there's another take on this?
There's no reason to think he's a shill. I mean, we've never had evidence. I need evidence before I'm willing to make an argument like that. I think that Putin certainly has historically treated Trump a lot more nicely on an individual level than European leaders have. Like, I remember when Trump was first president, he attended the G20 in Hamburg, and he went across the table and sat down with Putin because he felt like the Europeans treat him like Obama used to treat him, that he thinks that he's a rube, he's rude, he's an idiot, doesn't deserve his position. Where, Putin's kind of like Mohammed bin Salman, he's just one of the guys, right, hangs out. So I think there's some of that. And I also think that Trump literally doesn't like the EU. I disagree with him strongly on this. He believes that a strong European Union is bad for the U.S. because they get together and they coordinate their policy against the U.S. He would rather see a fragmentation so that those individual countries are weaker and have to do bilateral deals with the U.S. that's stronger. I think in a world where China's a big adversary, Russia's an adversary, having stronger allies is actually important for the United States. Trump disagrees. He just fundamentally disagrees. That's a real point of contention between the two of our worldviews. But I think what Trump just wants to deal with Putin, thinks he can get one. You'll remember President Bush, right, Jr., looked into Putin's eyes and saw his soul. Trump would not be the first leader that has good meetings with Putin and thinks that, that's going to lead to a breakthrough in the relationship. But it's not. And Trump is going to if he wants a ceasefire, and he does, he's going to have to actually push Putin a lot harder and more directly than he has been willing to do heretofore.
All right. I know we have to let you go. Before we do you have a quick take on what's going on Israel, Gaza? How are you feeling about that?
Well, let me first say something positive about Trump in the Middle East, which is that his Iran opening is a big one. And I think he is reasonably likely to succeed. The Iranians are in a very weak position right now. They have lost control over their proxies across the region. You'll remember with Signalgate, Vice President Vance was saying, oh, this is a horrible thing, and I should really tell Trump that he shouldn't go ahead with this war. It's going to hurt the Americans. But nobody else wanted to back him up, and Stephen Miller shut it down, so he didn't actually tell Trump he opposed it. Well, now we're a few weeks into America going after the Houthis. No American soldiers have been killed in battle. And the Houthis are now basically telling the Americans, okay, if you please stop, we'll stop attacking shipping that's going through the Red Sea. So that looks like a win. And now the Iranians, who said they wanted nothing to do with the Americans, are willing to do direct talk. So this has been Trump using a fist to get to a place of peace. And the meeting that the Israeli prime minister had with Trump a week ago in the White House was almost as bad as Zelensky's trip to the Oval last month. And I mean, for everyone that says that Trump is, in Israel's pocket, and yes, he certainly supports a lot of things that Israel is doing, but he was willing to make sure that Bibi knew who the boss was. Bibi wanted the tariffs to come off, and Trump said, we give you billions a year, and you should be appreciative about that, sir. And Erdogan's our friend, and we like his policy in Syria right now. We don't like what you're saying. And by the way, we're about to engage in direct talks with the Iranians, and we're not going to engage in military strikes against their nuclear capabilities the way you want to drag us into a war, Bibi. So I give Trump full marks on the way he handled that conversation. Now, on Gaza, the U.S. here is losing a lot of support around the world because, it's not just defending Israel after the heinous terrorist acts of October 7th. It's now supporting Israel in occupying over 50% of Gaza, right? And cutting off completely all humanitarian aid to the Palestinians in Gaza for the last month. And that is unconscionable behavior. It is clearly unacceptable to the international community. But we, the United States, apparently have no problem with it. And we're also prepared to deport American residents with green cards that are critical of that policy, that we have not accused credibly of any crimes. And that fundamentally is opposed to free speech, which I firmly oppose. I mean, free speech is an essential right for everyone that lives in this country. And we've decided it doesn't actually apply to a whole class of folks. And I think that sends a very bad message to those that we want to attract to our great nation.
Help me think more clearly about this one, because I'm very hardcore about free speech. It is one of the hills that I would quite literally die on. And at the same time, I believe that we have an obligation to protect our culture. And it's like in my company, we have this thing called principles. It actually came from Ray Dalio. And Ray Dalio talks about this. When you open up a culture so that people can say anything they want, you find that they will go and attack the foundations of your system. Now, I believe an American citizen should be able to attack those systems because you're a citizen and you have the full protection of the law. But if you are coming in as a green card holder who is not a citizen, I'm married to a green card holder, so let me be very clear. I will have to suffer the consequences if this goes in the wrong direction. But I do believe that we're in a position right now where if we don't establish that America does have a culture, that we have values that are worth protecting, we're going to end up losing that culture. And the paper that things are written on are only as good as the culture that backs them up.
No,
and
I agree with you.
How do we dance this dance?
I agree with that. But that means that our leaders have to stand for those values. They have to actually live as examples of those values. And I do not believe, we're not talking about students that are standing for Hamas. We're talking about students that oppose ethnic cleansing. We're talking about students that stand for rule of law. These are students that would support Ukrainians just as they would support Palestinians. And I think it is important, as someone whose own grandmother was Armenian fleeing genocide. And by the way, ethnic cleansing just committed against the Armenians, 120,000 in Nagorno-Karabakh that were forced out of their territory. The land's been taken, and Americans barely said boo. Just happened because that's the way of the world right now. But the United States has supposed what?
Who pushed in?
Azerbaijan, supported by Turkey. I know it barely made news. Nobody cares.
It's
just the Armenians. But I mean, we could talk about all this stuff's happening. South Sudan right now, the DRC right now. I mean, there's so many places that, a lot of people suffering, but there aren't any journalists on the ground. There are no economic interests, so we don't care. But, in the case of Israel, Palestine, of course, there's a lot more focus, a lot more tension. Russia, Ukraine, a lot more focus, a lot more tension. The point is that we need to stand for rule of law. We need to stand for the ability of human beings around the world to experience personal liberties, the ability to make a life for themselves and their children. And we, America, are falling down on that, both at home and around the world right now. And that is, I think, why this moment feels so fractious. We have to start standing for the things that our founders believed in to a much greater degree. And we need to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, first and foremost, how are we not living up to that? I fully agree that if you have someone that shouldn't be in this country legally, we should be addressing that. And the Democrats lost badly, in part because they failed. to address something that was clearly a matter of rule of law in the United States. They were allowing people to take advantage of an America that wasn't upholding its own laws. That's where American leaders are failing. And they're failing on the left and they're failing on the right. But to allow green card holding students to get caught up in identity politics and partisan warfare, that's not what America stands for. America stands for due process for everybody in this country. And that's why people try to come here from everywhere, because they understand that this is not just a place to make money. It's also a place where we respect individual liberty. And we're losing that.
I hear that. Well, Ian, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was an honor to have you as the very first guest to join us during a live. It was wonderful. This was fantastic.
Thanks,
since you're here, where can people engage with you?
G0media.com is where they can follow all of the work that our media company puts out. And you can also follow me on whether it's the Twitter sphere or, sort of LinkedIn or whatever else you want at Ian Bremmer. All of those things work. And if you send me a note, I do my damnedest to respond.
Awesome. Brother, thank you again so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Man. One of these days we'll do it in person and live. It'll be a lot of fun.
I would love that, man. I would love that. All right, until then.
So you got to tell me where I can get that jacket, right? Because like if we were twinsies, we could be like trading places or something.
There we go. See, now that spirit I like. I'll send you a link.
There you go.
All right, brother. Take care.
Be good. Bye.
Peace out. Bye. All right, chat. It's in the books. Our very first live guest. We got him there in the end. Thank you, sir. That was great.
How do you feel? What's your initial thoughts?
I loved it. So it's what the sentiment in the community was.
All positive, all
From
good.
my perspective, it was great.
Nice. Somebody called your jacket a MAGA jacket.
Jesus Christ. Do they own red now? Like just the whole color is theirs. They got it. All right. I noticed nobody said boo when I was wearing all blue though. So
Ooh.
what's on that?
Blue does look better on you though. I'm not gonna lie.
All right.
So
There it is. Hey.
I think it's a color palette skin tone thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm sure.
But
I have no doubt.
That's
a
just
big
the
part of it.
fashion girly in me.
Okay, fashion girl.
I respect it. Ricky Martinez likes the red. Eunice.
Go.
So-
You can like it. I like the blue
I
more
lost
though.
my
It looks
comment
better.
window, Eric. If we could drag that over.
Uh-oh. Thank you, Wild. Will D.
I like talking to Ian because I feel like he's a bit more grounded, and he gives kind of the
He doesn't feel like he's on a team.
yeah
So, like, he has a take.
yeah.
Like he's not wildly unpredictable in his responses, but he is. It doesn't feel like he's playing team ball.
Oh, I just seen it. Rotar, Michael Jackson. That's what the jacket reminds me of. Beat it.
Real? Oh,
Beat it,
hey.
beat it,
yeah,
beat
that's
it.
not crazy. It
Beat
needs
it.
more zippers.
Yeah, more zippers
But-
and it was like leather, but yes.
Can we
But
talk
I
about
get
the
where you're
shoes
going.
real quick too before we talk about the interview?
We can, as long as we can talk about. People are saying that we need to equalize sound volume on the podcast.
We have
So,
a whole mixer.
Eric.
The shoes.
The shoes. Yep.
Tell us about them
Must be the shoes.
real quick.
So these are dirt cheap that I got on Amazon, as I do with so many things.
Okay.
And there's not a lot to tell. They are awkwardly heavy, but they're the only ones that I have that are the right shade of red. I have like 4 pairs of red shoes, and like one is like slightly orange, so that didn't work.
Okay.
Then I've got a couple that are like quite a muted red,
Yeah.
which I don't like. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna wear red. But I like the style, and that was.
Do they actually squish down when you step or something? Like, do they actually?
I'm sure they must, but
Okay.
these are
You don't
not
feel it?
worn specifically for comfort. They're not uncomfortable by
Okay.
any means, but they're whatevs Amazon shoes that now I imagine are more expensive due to tariffs, because I have to believe
Unless
straight from China.
you just go direct, which is what this
Ayo,
other TikToker
let's
is trying to get us to do.
What a good segue.
Let's go. Look at that.
Do you recognize this style, this bag? Of course you do. For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis Vuitton, you name it. But for this, I am not proud because we were only making our wages. The profit margin for the people who are actually making the bags are very low. What I'm really proud of is that first, we have the best quality control. 2, we have the best craftsmanship. You know, Chinese
Pause it
craftsmen
for a sec. So this is, this is Tim Cook's whole point.
Yeah.
So you think you're going to China because you want cheap labor, and that might have been true 20 years ago. But now they've built out all the equipment, all the pipelines, the materials. Like, that's actually where you go if you want to make something extraordinary. It is just real that if there's somebody that's really good at something and they die and they did not teach somebody else, that knowledge goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do the thing, but you're not going to do the thing as well as you would if you've had multiple generations of people that are trained to be craftsmen, that really take pride in what they do. It just is real. And so it's a fascinating moment right now as people get exposed to the reality of building a brand name, is far harder than building a quality product.
Mm-hmm.
And so the great irony is most people won't even know the difference between a knockoff and the real thing. And so you could give it to them. You could be like, but no, can't you tell that the stitching is this, that, or the other? And they'd be like, not really.
Yeah.
So the big thing is, I know the brand. I know how somebody reacts to me when I wear this. I know how I feel when I put it on because it means something.
Yeah.
And so, listen, if China can do both, if they can spin up a brand, make the brand mean something, and on top of that, they can make this really high quality thing, then they'll win. And people will want, like, I want that. I only buy from China because now they mean something in the human psyche or the American psyche or the Western psyche, however you want to think about it. But there's a big difference between this is made well, this is high quality, and this matters to people.
Yeah.
And so, don't let that get lost in all of this.
I do think that it's interesting though, because this is like a F around and find out situation where they're saying the quiet part out loud. I'm a product of the East Coast, so we all know about Canal Street. It was nothing for us to go get knockoffs. We knew that like China can make it look and feel and be the same thing, but it was just frowned upon to get it. But now with tariffs and these things and these rising prices where the country is now, I feel like this Chinese factory owner, I kind of like what he's doing. He's going straight to the consumer. Hey, you can pay $300 for this bag, or you can buy it directly from us, and it's going to be $15. There was a woman that did Lululemon. There was another woman that was doing FIFA, Adidas shoes. Like, they're getting exposed. To me, it seems like it's an economic play. Like, okay, if you're going to charge our tariffs 300% and they're going to drive your prices up, forget that. Come direct, and then we could just undercut it. I think it's going to have an impact.
Well, so there is a lot going on here. So first of all, you've got, if they made those bags for a consumer with their design IP and all of that, and now China's just like, fuck you, I'm going to sell it anyway. That's the thing that people say China does that they blame them for. And now they're just doing it blatantly out in the open. If, on the other hand, they're saying, hey, we've got all these manufacturing techniques and we've got our own bag and we use the same materials and the same processes that created that big fancy bag that you love from Europe, and we want to show you China's where it's at. And if they're smart, they keep doing things like their engagement with American storytelling, because now you can begin to tell the story, make China a cool place. And if you can make China a cool place that I feel very positively about, and you're like, yo, this was made in China, and you can make a new generation as they grow up, not hear what I hear, which is cheap goods, low quality, gonna disintegrate like Temu style. And instead, it's like, no, the greatest luxury items in the world obviously come from China. Like, they've got the best craftsmen, they've got the best machines, they've got the best materials. And I don't think that they would have a lot of trouble turning that around if they come out and say, okay, we're now going to make our own brands, we're going to stand something, and we're really going to lean into this. And so I don't know. I'll be very interested to see if that's what they do. What they're doing right now is way less interesting. One, it's only going to be a blip in time, because at those rates, you're Temu. So you're going to see the quality begin to degrade. But if they can start building their own brands on it, then you'll see they could build something that sustains. But they will all turn each other into commodities. And if they turn each other into commodities, they will drive the price down. The only way to get out of that is with brand. And so what the European companies have been doing, or the American companies have been doing, is saying, hey, I can uncommoditize this thing. And so you make them for Hermes, you make them for Nike, whatever. And the second it's you make it for a generic thing over here, Now, without a brand differentiator, it's just a race to the bottom. Because you're up against a psychological principle inside the human mind.
What's that principle?
Scarcity. I want to have things you don't have. And I'm cooler if I have things that you don't have that you want. Now, if you don't want those things, then I've got nothing. But if I've got a scarce thing that you don't have and you want them, now I'm winning a game.
Gotcha. It's interesting. I took it as them already bragging about they have the best factories in the world. And you guys are getting, similar to the other video, you're getting sold the upcharge based off of the logo.
You are, and that will have certain ramifications, I think, very briefly. But anytime you're in alignment with the algorithms running in the human mind, you will find that you're going with the current. Anytime where you're fighting against the algorithm running in the human mind, you're swimming upstream. And so the algorithm running in the human mind is, I am a better person if I have this scarce, desirable thing. And so people always and forever find a way to make something scarce and desirable. They'll do it artificially if they have to. They will lean into things like gold that, because it's the result of an exploding star, it's like it's just got a natural amount of rarity to it. And so no matter what happens, something will rise up as, well, this one's scarce. And then once it's scarce and desirable, the price naturally goes up. So even if only on the secondary market, they might all sell them. It's $6. It is what it is. But people will decide for whatever reason that one of them is better than the others. And then everybody's going to want to flex. There's no escaping that. You see this crop up in video games. You obviously see this crop up in fashion. You will see this burn through communities. Like you'll get monkeys that will put flowers, they'll tuck them in their ears. So it's like creatures like to adorn themselves as a way of differentiating.
Nice. Okay. Flipping the map. We'll monitor it and we'll see. Some other things that happened in the news. President Bukele from El Salvador went to go visit the White House. I know we talked about briefly about the deportations and how they've been kind of moving quick and dirty on it. He was actually asked if they're going to bring back the illegal alien who was living in Maryland, who the court ordered for them to return. They said that it was an unlawful deportation. Trump pretty much said, oh, he's out the country now. It's kind of out of our hands. So the journalist decided to ask the president of El Salvador directly and say, do you plan on returning this man?
Releasing inside of Salvador. Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people. Mark, do you have something to say about
Yeah, I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country.
They want to dunk on the team.
I think it was in this interview that CNN kept trying to speak up, and he just kept saying, no, not you, not you.
Yeah.
I don't remember who the guy was that spoke on this. So they have that space outside that looks like it's on a street.
Mm-hmm.
A very cleanly bald guy came out and answered all like the really hard questions. And yeah, basically the punchline is, given what the Supreme Court ruled, if Trump has declared that these guys are a terrorist organization, which the Supreme Court upheld, then it's like, if this guy is a part of one of those groups, then it's game over. Period.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. They can deport them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the thing that this guy was reminding people, they are illegal aliens. He goes, is anybody here disputing that this guy was here in the country illegally? No, nobody is disputing that this guy is here in the country illegally. So let's say that he is brought back into America. You now have an illegal alien, inside your country. What's going to happen to him? He's going to get deported again. And so if you don't want him being deported back to El Salvador, where El Salvador is going to decide what to do with him, in this case, put him in a prison, where would you like him sent? He throws out, of course, the countries that would worry you the most, like Somalia and shit like that. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, is that what you're saying? You want us to send him to Egypt, Somalia, whatever? No, that's not what you guys want to have happen. So it comes down to, and I think everyone's being disingenuous if they don't acknowledge that there is something absolutely terrifying about somebody you love and care about getting deported, not just to the country, but getting deported into a prison. And it does. It feels dystopian. And so this is one of those where, all right, stare nakedly at what happened in El Salvador. And do we like it? Do we not like it? Because I guarantee some percentage of the people that got swept into those prisons were innocent, just as everything about our system tells me that some terrifying percentage of people that end up in prison were not actually guilty. They were wrongfully convicted. And so wrongfully convicted people are going to get swept up in that. And what price are we willing to pay? And I think everybody just has to come to grips with either we're not willing to pay any price. We're not willing to let a single person. I would rather America become the murder capital of the world and treat each one of these incidents uniquely. Or do we say, nope, that's crazy. We're going to say, if you're here illegally and you've committed some sort of violent act, 100% you're getting deported. And we just literally don't care what happens to you. What's it going to be? And that's where we're at now. Trump obviously has made his position very clear. If you were here illegally or, by the way, because this was for me, the one that had me very uneasy was when he was like, if you're a really bad person in America, we'll send you somewhere else. Oh, wow. And that was like England sending people to Australia vibes. And I was like, damn. So I don't like the idea of prison colonies. I will say that.
There is that notion, though, that if they could do it to one person, they could do it to somebody else. So to your point of if they did it to this Maryland man who was here legally, who's to say they won't do it to a bad enough
Just make
criminal?
people state their values.
Yeah.
So this is why when you and I had this conversation last time, I said, look, gut instinct, I haven't thought a lot about this, but let's say 0.1%. That's I'm okay with 0.1% of innocent people getting caught up in the system. It's still worth doing because I have a base assumption that says a very substantive number of hostile adversaries came across the border. I don't need you to believe that they're terrorist organizations, but they are hostile to our way of life. That could be because they're violent criminals. It could be because they are gang members. It could be because they are, not to overpick on China, but they could be Chinese nationals, just as if there was an open border into China, I promise we would send spies. So it's like all of these things, I believe, my operating assumption is that those things are true. And so we have gotten those into our country. We are going to have to address it. And so I'm saying this is my value. This is my base assumption that connects to this value that we need to protect our way of life, keep our citizens safe. And I'm willing to accept a 0.1% error rate. And if it's above that, you need to slow down. You need to address it. You can't just keep moving fast. That's my take. But when people are just yelling and screaming and they're not telling you, okay, this is my belief, this is my value, and therefore this is what I'm willing to accept, not accept. Like once you get to, no, Tom, it shouldn't be 0.1, it should be 0.001. Okay, now we have something that we can actually debate, get some political compromise and let the system run its course. Anything short of that is just yelling and screaming.
I'm seeing a lot of due process though. Like where is that?
Love it. It's a great place to pick up the argument.
Yeah, like so 0.01 people of getting kind of swept up in the system are okay with messing it up. But I mean, I guess we have to...
hold on. So it is my understanding that everybody that got deported did have due process.
Due process meaning the time in front of a judge. I think that's where I was going to go with it. Like, how do we...
Now, I could be wrong, but again, it's my understanding that every one of these people had their case reviewed by a judge. Now, if I'm wrong about that, nice and easy. Cool. Yeah. Yep, because I agree. Everybody should have due process. But it's my understanding that none of these people got green lit until a judge looked at that and said, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, whatever. Now, one more time for the people in the cheap seats. If I'm wrong about that and those files were not reviewed, or if people are saying, no, they need to individually stand before the judge, cool. We've got the place at which we can start arguing. My take on that would be no new rules. So what is the rule here? If we have a law that says these people can be reviewed at the case file level, great. If we have a rule that says they have to go in front of a judge and they didn't, bad. If they didn't, right? So just nice and easy, follow the letter of the law. And if my understanding on any of this is inaccurate, I update my statements to follow those beliefs and values, just to make it nice and simple.
From the chat here saying, Colonial Robinson saying, there would not be a judge saying bring him back if there were due process. Paul Reddick saying due process for citizens.
I don't know that that's true. I have no reason to believe that that is true.
Yeah, I have two people on Twitch saying that 2 courts found him to be a member of MS-13, and then another person saying that they haven't gotten due process. So that's why I'm like, due process feels like a loaded word in this specific argument, because that's where we're splitting.
Yes, and if you watch and it might be worth you guys trying to find it. It happened in the last couple days. So-and-so speaks to press about deportations, and then just add bald for me. And it will almost certainly come up because it's in the last 5 days. So, and he breaks it down and he's like, this is very straightforward. They've been reviewed. Nobody disagrees. He even asked them, does anyone here disagree that he was in this country illegally? And they were all like, nope. So he's like, cool. So we have an illegal alien that came into our country. Let me see if I can find it since I watched it this morning.
Right, history.
You've got the right street.
No, these are all Trump.
Don't forget to add the word bald.
Oh, trust me, this is
bald. Nope, that made it worse. Terrible TV. Anybody seen what he's talking about? We're gonna debunk it live on right now, chat, because I have 14 people saying yes. Another 4 people saying no.
It worked perfectly for me. What's wrong with
What did you
people?
exactly type? What did you exactly type?
I typed exactly bald guy talking deportations. What's happening?
Bald guy.
So let's see, because this is only a short.
Bald.
His name is Stephen Miller. So Stephen Miller, we will update now.
Are you talking about this one?
PH. Yep, but that's the short. You want the whole thing. Stephen Miller talking deportations. Here we go.
I did not know bald guy was Stephen Miller.
One day ago. Is this the one? That certainly looks like his suit. All right. That's the guy.
Yeah. Do you have the...
yeah, let me drop this into our shared document.
April said, LOL, tell me we don't profile people with the laughing emoji.
You dropping it in Ian Bremmer?
Yes, I am going to.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make sure that this is actually the right one. I think this is the right one. This is definitely the right guy.
A few in the chat saying, watch Legal Eagle. Legal Eagle is biased and not impartial.
Watch Legal Eagle, but he's biased?
Not
That's
biased.
2 different people, I'm guessing?
Is biased and not impartial.
Yeah, so you got one person saying yes, one person saying no. Basically.
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Who wants to go first?
I'll ask.
Yep,
do
I'm
you
almost certain this is
plan
right.
on ramping up the does the administration plan on ramping up deportations to El Salvador? And how many people do you want El Salvador to take from the United States?
Well, as an example, there are thousands.
Do this because there's a lot of preamble. Go to about halfway in.
Members.
More, that was like
saying,
40%.
I'm so glad
Go
that
to
you deported
60%.
him. Do you understand that?
Can I ask, as a matter of policy,
right, back up
does the
like
administration believe
a little more.
that immigration judges
back up.
His only choices in life are to live in El Salvador or to live
go
in
back
another country,
30 seconds.
Legal alien. So when you keep saying return, because you've been other option, he doesn't get to stay here. He has no right to remain here. I guess so. Okay. So the deportation order means the judge has said he must be deported from the country. He has no right to remain here any longer. He must be removed from the country. So his only options are to be deported to his home country or another country. That's it. There's no other option. He doesn't get to stay here. He doesn't get to live here. He has no future here. He has no right to be here. He's an illegal alien. So when you keep saying return, because you've been spun up by the Open Borders advocates, you all seem to be operating under the illusion that he would be able to come to the United States and just continue to live here illegally. That's not an option available to him. His only choices in life are to live in El Salvador or to live in another country. That's it. There's no other option, legally or otherwise, because he came to our country illegally. Do you understand that?
Can I ask, as a matter of policy, does the administration believe that immigration judges, because they're under DOJ, that their orders can be overruled by what the administration wants? Is that a general matter of policy?
Well, actually, so specifically, is the Attorney General has authority to overrule the immigration courts.
So people are saying this bald guy is basically the president.
Stephen, on the gold card, the president and Secretary Latnick have suggested they're...
Miller might be a deeper figure than I realized. All right, so he goes on and on, basically asking these guys if they understand immigration law, which by the end of it, you're like, probably not. But also watching him, I was like, man, the Trump administration really digs combative people. So he is certainly not breaking that streak. That is for sure. So did he break a law? Yes, he did. He came into America illegally.
Do you put this in the same bucket as the Colombian student who was protesting?
No, it feels like you want to draw a distinction between those guys because the Colombian guy was not here illegally. He's a green card holder, much like my wife. And so now the question is, what protections do we want to afford green card holders? Now, my thing changes on Colombian homeboy if he is and it's promoting Hamas.
Not like we know he's not Colombian. He's from
Columbia University. If he is supporting Hamas, no bueno. If he isn't, and he's just saying, hey, I don't like the way that America is handling Israel, but he's not supporting a terrorist organization, then I'd be like, what are we doing here? So again, you can track my thinking based on the thought experiment maybe more clearly than the actual incident, because I don't plan to go super deep on that incident. If it becomes like a whole central thing, then we can dig in. But as a passing thing, probably better at the level of thought experiment.
All right. Switching gears a little bit. RFK said he's going to know the calls for the rise in autism by the
September.
Way,
at some point we do need to get to Destiny.
I forgot about that.
About me.
So
I do forgot about that.
Are we going to watch the whole thing?
How long is it?
I believe it's like 8 minutes. Yeah.
8. Yeah. This is how the game is played. You've had the China shock. You've hollowed out your ability to manufacture, and you've cut all these jobs. That
also,
I don't see it.
I know I'm pushing back on this, but like this is just
as they're talking. Hey guys, could we get the computer 7 up?
A truism. People say this over and over again. You've hollowed out your manufacturing. You can't. That's not true. The United States manufactures a ton of stuff. We just do later supply chain stuff. The idea that the U.S. just does no manufacturing at all is just not true.
Okay, pause it. This is just so not... just in case he's misunderstanding my point, I will say this. It is. I don't think he will think that it's controversial, so I'm surprised why he's pushing on this. If he's listening to me beyond more than clips, he will understand that my point is you have a military adversary that controls a lot of your manufacturing, a lot. I don't even need people to look any farther than drones. Like the amount of the supply chain of drones that they control is crazy town. As Ian Bremmer was saying, having chips that basically control our entire modern way of life 100 miles off the coast of China, a place that they have said many times that they want to reunify with, bad mojo. During COVID, we saw the things that we weren't able to get because they control it. So I'm perfectly willing to say, hey, we're doing really well on unemployment. AI is probably going to mean that the vast majority of jobs that we bring back here are going to go to robots anyway. So that isn't going to be the big point. Cool. Doesn't change my stance on the need to bring back some manufacturing to the US. I don't understand. So he would have to have the operating assumption that the thought of a war with China is so stupid as to like, don't even think about that. Globalism, yay. Never going to go to war with China. Then his thinking would make sense, but then we do not share that base assumption. Not that I think we're going to, but I think we have to be prepared for.
Not a true thing. People keep saying this, but it's just not true.
There is a segment of the American population that without manufacturing jobs, there's been nothing for them. And so the whole learn to code meme it didn't work. Yeah. And so
that's fine. Learn to code didn't work, but learn to raise chickens in your own backyard because of the price of eggs, which is an unironic thing, by the way, that, who said this? Was it our Secretary of Agriculture? She actually said that's okay. Like, learn to code was stupid and out of touch, but learn to manufacture textiles, that's okay? What?
If this actually goes full trade war, the debtor, the America, the people.
Yeah, I'm not sure why everybody jumps to the textile thing. I think because it is maximum comedic impact and it lets you show those memes. Maybe textiles, but that certainly doesn't rank high on my immediate list of things to be thoughtful about. Immediate things to be thoughtful about: energy, technology, anything tied to warfare. Like those are going to be things you want to onshore, friendshore for sure. So, I mean, period.
People who's buying most of this stuff ends up coming out on top versus China and other countries who sell other things to us. So it seems red now, but ultimately will net for our benefits if this gets to fully play out.
Yes. Now, I would ask people to put the emotional valence. It's a bit like Russia saying to Germany, we have more soldiers to kill in Stalingrad than you do. Because what's hiding in his words is, this will be bad. Yeah. We'll just survive it better than you. So it'll be a little bit worse for you than it will be for us. So I do not want people to hear in my recitation of him or what he's saying that this isn't going to be very choppy, as they say. Choppy means people losing money. Choppy means people freaking out. Yeah. But Trump, if you can believe the words he says, if you can believe best.
And again, if you want to take this argument, then fine. But just, you need to be honest about what you're saying, okay? Like, and I don't want to say that he's not being honest, okay? But when you say we need to bring manufacturing back, that's fine. But that needs to come now with a few understandings. One, if you want to build a factory in the US to manufacture anything, you can already do that, okay? So why are we not doing it? We're not doing it because it's way more expensive to do. Not a little bit more expensive, but way more expensive. Okay, all right, fine, sure, maybe it's way more expensive.
Okay, so this is where one has to start with the goal in mind. So if he and I are arguing at the like tactical level, but we haven't agreed on what we're trying to achieve, it's entirely possible that my tactics would never lead him to the goal that he wants. And obviously possible that the tactics he wants will never lead to the goal that I want. So we both need to put our, what is the goal that we are trying to achieve out on the table? And then we can say, oh, damn, we actually don't even agree on the goal. We may, I don't know. But for making it nice and easy to respond to what I'm saying, my goal is that it's twofold. One, we want to bring manufacturing back for the people that do not have they don't interface with the world in a white collar way. That one feels like a low impact argument, but it's nonetheless real for me, as I want to find a way for those people to thrive, and I don't have a better answer yet. But I think AI really is going to obliterate a lot of that. And so I do have sort of a blind act of faith that if we're manufacturing here, that there will be opportunities that I can't see yet that will be created. But that one admittedly is an act of faith. So if he or anybody else wants to say that's a weak argument, I'd say, yeah, that is a weak argument. The other one, though, which is, I think, extremely important, is we have to be able to defend ourselves. And so I don't think that that modern warfare will play out entirely at the level of cyber. So I think that there will still be elements of kinetic, even if they play out purely from a robotics standpoint. From everybody that I've heard talk on this subject, robotics, drones, those pipelines go through China. And so it is going to be more expensive to onshore that. But again, my operating base assumption is you have to find a way back to that. You have to be able to control the manufacturing of your modern way of life and of modern defense. You just have to. And so if he and I are going to argue, it might need to be about that. Do we actually need that? Is that real? Because if that base assumption is somehow wrong and he sees something that I'm missing, that's like, no. They don't control robotics or drones. You've been misinformed. Oh, okay, cool. Then where is that already with a friendly? I think we're going to find that I'm right about that, but I would be very open. That to me is just a fact-based thing.
Yeah.
If it is true that we do not control our own weapons technology pipelines, then you have to shore that up. If it's like, Tom, you're really missing a point. We're never going to go to war with China for these reasons. Then I go, ooh, I think he's right. We're never going to go to war with China. Cool. And then I would be like, yep, this has higher predictive validity over here. Again, I'd be so surprised if there's something that I'm missing on that, but I'm very open. But we keep not arguing at that level. And so this ends up being the Sam Harris Murray debate. Now, I don't know if my breakdown of their disagreement is entertaining. I thought a lot about that this weekend. I had ideas about how I could have made it more entertaining, and I resisted the impulse. And I was like, okay, listen, you said the parts that you really believed in the moment, having heard them collide. And some of this may be either he thinks he understands my base assumptions, but just never addresses them, doesn't think of the world from the position of understand their base assumptions, understand the goal that they're trying to achieve, and then ask, do we share an end state? If we share an end state, do we agree on tactics? If we share an end state but disagree on tactics, what are the base assumptions that drive the belief that these would be the right tactics? I don't think there's any way he's mapping me as somebody who's just stuck on a team. That would be very surprising. So anyway, he's so smart. I would love his angle on like, okay, this is your base assumption. Here's why it's wrong. Like I'm fully here to have my thinking sharpened. But anyway, every time we interact, it's not at that level. We're admittedly not interacting directly. And I won't lie, I do love the like nature of React videos. So I unfortunately enjoy that part of it. Anyway, that's my take so far. Can I borrow the power cable? I'm about to die.
I do think that there's something interesting that we point out, because you do talk about we need to get robotics here. We need to get drone manufacturing here. Drones, I know there's nothing we can do, but like Anduril and some of these new age military companies, they are based in the U.S.
And they're
Tesla
also the
is
ones
building,
screaming, hey, by the way, you can't let China control these fucking pipelines.
Yeah.
So when you've got the big companies that are doing this stuff saying must onshore, it's like they're the ones that are going to take a huge financial hit. I mean, obviously they can raise prices. But yeah, don't take it from me. Take it from the people
But
that make these.
I'm saying that to say that there is a push for these future tech companies to be built here between Figure, between the Optimus robot. So there is some presence of American warehousing and manufacturing happening now. So do you think this trade war
So wait, are you saying, Tom, we don't need to do all this crazy shit? It was already happening.
That's where I'm going. That was what the question was.
Got it. Okay. Perfect question. Amazing. You're putting your finger on the right thing. Okay. So here are the beliefs that drive me. As of right now, we have some companies, that are moving in the right direction, and that is amazing. Now the question is, how many hurdles are in their way? What's the ratio of we do to they do? Right now, it is my understanding that it is so wildly disproportionate. And you need look no further than the stat of China has built more ships. It's like either the last month or the last year. It's not less than that. They have built more ships in the last year than we've built since the end of World War II.
Are we like an air company though? Are we building?
Bro, what I'm saying is it is always whoever controls the seas controls the world. So you ignore a navy at your peril. What has happened is we've just stopped manufacturing. So we've got to be able to respond. So right now, we're in a position where we can't backfill our own weapons. So when Israel wants more weapons, when Ukraine wants more weapons, we're not able to backfill them. So it's my understanding that Russia right now is making them faster than we can because they're actively in war. You would expect them to ramp up their pipelines. So I'm just saying the last thing you want to do is be caught flat-footed. You do not want China, who is watching your every single move. You don't want them to go, yeah, we've now produced enough. We are so far ahead of them. It will take them 5 years to catch up. And in that time, we will have reintegrated China. In that time, we will have what? I mean, I don't consider them to be territorially imperialistic. I could be wrong about that. I've not looked deeply into it, but I'm perfectly willing to believe that they're not, that's not what's driving them. But nonetheless, they want to be number one. So anyway, those are the things that drive my thinking. Now, if we were to look at that and it was like, oh, bro, no, we're already good. Like we're almost one-to-one parity with them in terms of the ability to build. Companies started making this shift 2 decades ago. We're good. Then I would update my thinking and be like, oh, we don't need to do this. This is just creating economic chaos. This is mad. But I have not yet identified a single one of my assumptions from a credible source that says that I'm wrong about it. So it's not me making it up. This is me piecing things together, like things that I've heard from Palmer Luckey and Elon Musk, people that deal in robotics, people that deal in drones. And obviously they're not the only two. So, but if there's somebody out there with better information, I'm here for it.
Happy. You want to keep going?
Yeah.
So what? Okay, well, if we're going to say that it's way more expensive to do that, then we need to be honest when we say that means that if we're going to tariff and we're going to rebuild whatever the fuck we're rebuilding, we're going to do it with an economy where everything costs more. Everything's going to be more expensive.
If it's not,
you're not going to be able to afford the same consumer goods. And you also need to be honest about unemployment. Unemployment was very low.
Yep.
The United States labor force was one of the most productive in the world. It will no longer be one of the most productive in the world because productivity is measured by the amount of output from an employee per hour worked. And when you're doing things like extracting coal from the ground or hammering fucking door windows into fucking cars, okay, these are inherently, they're just less productive jobs.
So
unless
I'm
you want to do this weird thing where, remember,
I'm beginning to understand the base assumptions that make up his mindset. Now, I very much could be wrong. I want to be very clear about that. But it sounds like to me, he's looking at this and going, globalism was an unmitigated good. This was amazing. Or maybe not unmitigated. There were downsides. But they're not downsides that create a price. They're not downsides that Trump's actions pay for at a reasonable price. I think would probably be the right way to say it. So I think where he and I disagree is just how seriously do we have to take being able to manufacture a select set of items. Yeah. So far, that has high predictive validity in this conversation.
We're trying to have it both ways too. Now, some of them have said, okay, we're not bringing back those manufacturing jobs, Destiny. Obviously, that would be retarded. We're talking about automated jobs. Oh, then we're back at learn to code. So you're going to bring back manufacturing to the United States, but you're not bringing back all the jobs you said you were going to. That was a lie. You're just bringing back software development jobs, manufacturing jobs. Okay, so then you're making things more expensive. You're not bringing back the same jobs from before, and you're hurting our exports market as well because now every other country has tariffs on us. So you're only exporting to Americans that are now going to be made poorer, that are going to have less demand for. This is just, none of this works. Internally, it's not even there.
So pause it. He's got a chain of logic, which is that you're going to make everything more expensive and we're not going to get a benefit out of this that is worth the price that we're going to have to pay. He at least has very clear internal logic. Again, the thing I keep coming back to is you cannot be in a position where you can't manufacture. So I'm willing to pay a price for that. Now, it's not an infinite price that I'd be willing to pay. And it is entirely possible that the way that Trump is going about this is completely foolish and that he should have been taking a far more measured approach, gone out, got some allies on our side, got people with us, and then, and only then, gone after doing something with China. And so I think there's a very good argument to be made. Ian Bremmer does a good job of summing this up, which is, man, you don't go after your allies and your enemies at the same time. This is crazy. And that may very well play out to be true. So the only counter argument to that I've seen that's compelling is, do you really think we would have gotten here, because I think David Sachs believes that we're making very good progress. Do you think we would have gotten here by saying pretty please? He was like, you get the kind of concessions that we're about to get, that we're going to need to get, and that we are already getting to shift the trading, the global trading environment that will be necessary to disrupt for, I think they'd probably say for 2 reasons, 3. One, it's just not fair. They've got a whole fucking thing. The Trump administration has a thing for fairness. And it is hollowed out the middle class. And then you've got to be prepared from a military perspective. That's what I think the Trump administration thinks that they're bringing back. Now, again, I've been very clear on what my stance is. I don't think I need to repeat it again, but it is now becoming clear what his shtick is, which is keep the economy humming. You're asking us all to pay a price that's way too high. The way that Trump is going about this is nonsensical. I think he's conflating me with trying to have it both ways. But I get, if you're thinking I'm saying, hey, you've got to you're going to employ people, working class people are going to be employed in these factories. And you think that's like the big, come on, that's what we got to do, which I was way more hardcore on that in the beginning when I was first going down this road. So I certainly don't blame him for thinking that. I could see that, but there is a price to be paid. Anyway, there's more, I think, points of departure in terms of he thinks all prices will go up. I don't think all prices will go up. I think he's conflating the idea of inflation with rising prices, which sounds so dumb when you say it.
until you understand. Letnick explained this well, that if there are things made in America, there's no reason that those prices should go up. If things are being made somewhere else, then yes, if you tariff them, then those prices will go up. And if there's only one option you have, and it is the thing that is made elsewhere, then in that category, all prices will have gone up. But I think Trump is already signaling he's sledgehammery, but then he backtracks and goes, okay, cool, I don't want to create too much chaos, and so we're going to make exemptions temporary or otherwise for these things, because he's aware.
Temporary exemptions on
exactly.
Chinese,
now he's saying that
like
they're temporary, but anyway. So
yeah.
All right, keep chugging, or we're never going to get through this.
Apparently, it's not even there. Also, remember, one of the things I criticized before was people saying like, oh, well, look, oil prices are dropping. Oh, well, that's okay, right? Oil prices are coming down. Oh, that's good then. Oil prices are dropping, right? The reason why oil prices are dropping right now is because of people think there's going to be a reduction in the demand for oil in the future. Okay, that's why oil prices are coming down, because when economies slow down, there's less of a demand for energy, and if there's less of a demand for energy, it means that people are going to produce less energy. Okay, now you might think you're clever and you go, okay, well, fine, Destiny. Maybe that's true, but isn't that still good? Doesn't that still mean at the very least we're going to get cheaper oil? No, because they won't continue to produce at that level. So while energy prices might come down temporarily, the only reason why fracking and everything else took off in the United States is because it was profitable to frack, is because oil price got high enough for it. People are not going to continue to drive down the cost of the goods that they sell just so that you can have a cheaper buy. At some point, U.S. energy is just going to slow down. They're just going to stop producing as much energy until the price reaches some kind of equilibrium where it's profitable to do so. Remember, a proven reserve is just how much it would net you in profit to go after some particular type of energy. If the cost of energy falls too much, then your proven reserves also decrease. Like,
hey, you guys have been ripping us off. And the way that I know you've been ripping us off is this math equation that says you guys are doing unfair things, because remember, there could be so much sleight of hand in the non-tariff trade, oh God, what do they call it? Barriers, the non-tariff trade barriers. So you guys, we looking at China say, hey, you might say you only have whatever, 7% tariffs. But the reality is you have all these non-tariff trade barriers. And so he gave an example. If we tried to ship McDonald's French fries and they said, well, because you can't tell us where the potatoes come from, unfortunately, we're gonna have to reject this.
So U.S. right now.
I like how people, I wish when people would say things like that. Remember, this is actually an error in thought. If there exists a thing that seems really wacky or weird like that, you should know why it's there. Like, that should bother you. You're like, well, why does that thing exist? That seems really stupid. It seems like a really dumb rule, right? You should investigate and be able to answer that question. There's probably a reason, right?
Now, in 2025, has to change the trajectory that it's on.
Every empire.
Yeah, it's a Chesterton's fence thing, kind of, sure.
That has ever existed has collapsed because of.
And also,
sorry, I just can't let that one slide.
Football stats.
So he's saying no matter what they do, we should just assume that they have a reason for doing it. That's pretty soft logic. But anyway, keep going.
I know exactly what he's about to say. This weird thing where it's like, people do this with elections. They do it with the NFL. They do it and everything. Where it's like, no person who has ever won New Hampshire and Iowa and whose birthday was in the first 6 months of the year has ever lost the primary in even years. I'm
so curious to see if I am about to do this.
There's always like a thing. And he's about to bring up no country whose, I think it's no countries whose spending on the interest to their debt is greater than the cost of their defense department has ever spent. It is like, first of all, how many empires are we even talking about here? Like 4? And then also, what the fuck are these numbers? How do they relate to each other? What?
Debt racing towards a fiscal cliff that is Armageddon.
The trajectory that it's on.
Every empire that has ever existed has collapsed because of
debt.
Racing towards a fiscal cliff that is Armageddon.
Oh, he's just saying debt. Well, that's an even dumber analysis.
Is it?
That doesn't make what like what happened?
Come on, Destiny. What you got?
I had a ton of debt, so my life's over. Oh, so is that what happened? You got a ton of debt? Yeah. Why did you have a ton of debt? Well, I borrowed a fuck ton of money. I tried to gamble it all away, and then I had to borrow a whole bunch of money from some loan sharks, and then they cut my arms off, and then I had to borrow money from the bank for my house.
That's
and I lost
not how it plays out.
Oh, so wait. So how would you describe your failures again? Because of debt.
This is amazing. Okay, so this is fun. Destiny. The reason that empires fall because of debt is because they start money printing, and then they ultimately devalue their own currency, and it creates all kinds of problems. I'm so shorthanding all of this But to put it in a nutshell, that's when people go to war or a revolution. So I'm a little shocked that you don't find the most recent 500 years, even though that may only be 4 or 5 empires, you don't find that to be a compelling pattern. But boy, if something is repeated over and over and over the last 500 years, it certainly seems like it has pretty high predictive validity. So anyway, also it aligns with what I know about the human mind. So there it is. Anyway, keep chugging. Let's go. Let's see if we can make it to the end here.
Don't you think it would make more sense to talk about the other things that led to your debt? Like, it's not surprising to say that debt has led to the collapse of every country ever.
I've talked about it so many
times. Debt is
times.
probably a very useful proxy for wealth, right?
Debt is very effective, and if people could keep it in check, Destiny, it would be wonderful. The problem is they cannot. If you could do a little bit of debt, we'd be fine. People do a whole lot of debt. A lot.
Debt, that's kind of like saying every person has died because their heart stopped beating. That's true, but a man suffering from heart disease whose heart stops beating and they die versus a man who was guillotined whose heart stops beating because they run out of blood, it's probably, these are a lot different. It doesn't really make sense to say both of them died because their heart stopped beating, right?
Okay, so on that one, I think it's just because he's seeing a clip instead of realizing I've talked about that like a gazillion times. But all right, still mad shout out to Destiny. I love it. Appreciate him giving me counter views to the things that I think. And yeah, I continue to be grateful that he covers us every now and then.
All right, it's that time.
Whoa, it is that time. Holy
It's about that time.
All right, boys and girls, thank you guys so much for joining us for the live. We appreciate it very much. Today seemed pretty successful. I am glad that you enjoyed us having Ian Bremmer on. That was a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll be doing more of that in the future. And make sure, if you're not already, that you watch our Tight 60s, which we're going to film another one right now. All right, everybody, until next time, be legendary. Take care. Peace out.